Special Operations, Covert Ops, Espionage, The Team House, with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 97. This is the Team House. I'm Jack Murphy here with co-host Dave Park. Our guest tonight is Caleb Phillips. He's returning for the second time. His first appearance was back on episode 63. Yes, I wrote it down on my hand so I wouldn't forget. Episode 63, we spoke to Caleb about his entry into the Army, his time in the 82nd Airborne Division, being deployed to Iraq, being deployed for relief down in New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina, and then getting into Special Forces training. So for this episode, we're kind of jump right into the Special Forces deployments and aspects of his military career. So Caleb, thank you for joining us again.
Oh, my pleasure, gentlemen. It was great last time, and I'm looking forward to it again.
Yeah, and this episode won't have the extended intermission in which my COVID mullet gets shaved off. So we won't have any interruptions going on this time. So, Caleb, where do we want to start here? You hit the ground running in 5th Special Forces Group, get deployed, what is it, 2008, 2009?
2007. We graduated, you and I graduated July of 2007, and then you and one of our buddies went to Belize.
Yeah.
When we got out of the field, I already had an email from my team sergeant saying, hey, I know you have plans, but you need to stop those plans and get over.
That's right. That's right.
So I packed up. I think we graduated, like I said, the 21st or 22nd, and I was in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 30th. And I signed in. I got on my team. I was supposed to go to the mountain team, and I ended up walking in, kind of handing my packet in to the team sergeant, to the operations sergeant. And he said, oh, no, you're going to go to 5334. They're down the hall. And I was like, all right, I don't fucking know what any of these numbers mean. So I'm just going to go to whatever room they point me to. And I walk in the room and he's like, oh, you're the new guy. Cool. Go sit over there. Don't talk. I was like, all right, roger that. And that began the journey.
And so what was this team that you landed on? What was the mission, and what were you guys getting ready to go do? Because I forgot how highly motivated you were, that like you went straight to where you were ordered to go, whereas I took a couple weeks off for vacation and went down to Belize and was bullshitting down in Central America. No, I totally forgot about you. You showed up there before I did.
Yeah. So we were spinning up to go to OIF 5, Operation Iraqi Freedom, the 5th. And my company had just come back probably less than a year before. So they had been on, this is their 3rd rotation to Iraq, and they were in the initial invasion of Afghanistan. So almost all the guys in the company had at least 2 combat deployments, and most of the senior dudes had 2 arrowheads or invasion devices on their ribbons. So these were giants. Like just walking down the hall, like, oh, that's Chief so-and-so, that's Master Sergeant so-and-so. And these are all names I recognize from books and the news. So showing up, got there July 30th, 31st. We were in Fort Bliss, Texas, a week later. Mm-hmm. I was living out of my car. I didn't have a barracks room because they didn't have barracks rooms by then, and I didn't have our apartment yet. So it was kind of one of those things. I lived out of my car. I kind of brought it up to the team sergeant, and he said, well, what do you want me to do about that? You're still getting on the airplane. So got on the airplane and spent a month at Fort Bliss training my ass off. Shot a lot, blew a lot of things up. Learned how to fly the Raven, which came in really handy on the next couple deployments. And then, came back around September and pushed out to Iraq.
What's the Raven for people who aren't aware of that?
Yeah, sorry. So the Raven B, the MQ-11B Raven is it's UAV or a drone. It's a fixed wing. It looks like an airplane. And it's about 1.5 meters long with a 2 meter wingspan. And it has, at the time, this was one of the first generations. So it either had a forward or a left facing camera or right facing, one of those. And the whole idea was that an ODA would have 2 of them, and they would stop somewhere. They'd set this thing up. They'd launch it. And then they could do a little recon of the objective or their route, wherever they were going.
Well, now, when you say launch it, is that like a hand launched? You just throw it in the air and it starts flying?
Yes. Yes, theoretically, that's how. In reality, it required at least 3 people to try it, and it would break several times. So that was the specialty that I got for that deployment.
I remember we got those in Ranger Battalion, like kind of the tail end of the time I was there, and I believe that you could fit the entire system broken down into 2 rucksacks, and the guys would jump it in when we were jumping on airfields, and then they'd have to cobble it together and do the whole deal.
Yeah, so it comes in the box that it came in. It came in like a padded bag that you could take it out of this giant Pelican case and put it in this bag. And then you could theoretically put the bag in a rucksack. Mm-hmm. Well, since we had trucks, we didn't do that. We just kept it in the giant protective box. And it required a lot of prep because you had to charge the batteries. You had to preload pretty much where you thought you were going to be into the system. Because if you were just trying to Amelia Earhart your way with that thing, it was going to go into Syria. So it was a chore. It was a good additional duty because, like you're important. You're in the thick of things. You're not just on a machine gun pulling security in an open desert. You're making things happen. So it was really interesting, and it was a really good volunteer opportunity for a new guy on the team.
That's cool, man. So you got to learn about the Raven out at Fort Bliss doing your pre-mission training. What is PMT like for people who don't know? I mean, there might be some interest out there in like what that sequence looks like of pre-mission training for an ODA. What do you go through? How do you prepare for your deployment? So
when we show up, all the team sergeants kind of get together, all the senior non-commissioned officers in the company. And my first PMT was way different than all my other ones. The reason it was way different is because we had so many multiple combat rotation veterans there. And I remember the first week, it was all just checking our gear, making sure everything worked, as the senior guys were kind of somewhere else. And now I know what they were doing. They were setting up a training calendar. So we just laid on pretty much every range and maneuver area you could on Fort Bliss. And our 5 ODAs, 60 guys-ish, just ruled hundreds of miles of training area. I mean, I remember we would meet just LMTVs full. For those of you that don't know, LMTV is a very large cargo truck. LMTVs full of machine gun ammo and grenades and rockets. And it'd just be like, well, what are we going to go do? Oh, we're going to fucking drive this way and shoot anything that looks like a bad guy. And it was like, oh, right on. And we would do that for hours. It was awesome. It was just, I never experienced anything like that in my life. So it was kind of one of those things where it was like, hey, new guy, come here. Yes, sir. Or Roger Sergeant, whatever. You show over there. It's like, hey, you ever shoot? And bear in mind, I was an infantry guy. I was a mortarman. But in the 82nd, you didn't really get to play with a lot of other stuff. You played with your M4, a SAW, maybe a 240, and then the mortars. And it was like, hey, you ever shoot a Carl G? No. All right, well, now we're going to shoot 20 rounds of Carl G. And it's like, now I can't forget how to do it. There were no overpressure warnings or anything like that.
So the Carl Gustav, did it basically replace the bazooka?
It replaced the 90 millimeter recoilless rifle beforehand.
It's a shoulder fired recoilless rifle that will knock your socks off when you shoot it. And 20 rounds just sounds like torture.
The BOP chart, I don't have it in front of me, but it's it depends on the round and the position that you're in, if you're kneeling, standing, etc. But I mean, it's like no more than 6 HEDP rounds per day, I think.
Yeah.
Like at a maximum.
It hurts to shoot it. It hurts to be around it when it's shot. So, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, we just went hog wild on these ranges. We were dropping both live and training ordnance from aircraft, fixed wing and rotor wing. We did all this on a rotational basis. So say my team at the time, it was 594 before we went to the 4-digit numbers. 594 is going to be on the small arms range today, and then in the afternoon they're going to be in the shoot house. And then 595 is going to, they're going to be our sister team for the day, so we're going to swap. And we did that for a month straight. Our culmination exercise included a little bit of intelligence gathering, followed by a hit in New Mexico in a small town, which, if I could remember the name of it, I'd make myself very happy. But it was a target.
You can't, because you fired all those HEDP rounds in one day.
What? No, it was a small town, and it was a legit old mining town that the government had bought, and they had people that lived there. There were people that were living in this town, and we infilled by van. We snuck in between occupied houses, and then we blew the doors on this target. We went in there and shot people with munitions. And then we could hear the QRF, or the Quick Reaction Force, start to spin up. The local actors were starting to show back up, so we had to get out of there pretty quickly. So that was my first exposure to SF, and I thought I was an actor in a movie. I was like, this is fucking amazing.
Sounds pretty gangster for sure, man. So you complete PMT, you're getting shot over to Iraq. Well, before we get into the first Iraq deployment, because I don't want to forget about some of these questions before they came up, and we're doing a little bit of time traveling here. It's not going to be exactly in chronological order, but Jackson asks, Jack and Caleb, what was your experience with A15 like? The surfs are a controversial area for SF guys. Some guys claim they are as well-trained as CAG. Others say they're just LARPers. Thoughts? So this is a spicy question coming right out the gates at you.
When he says surfs, does he mean like land, people who work the land?
Serfs, medieval serfs.
The people around the SF
in earlier
compound that maintain your livestock.
So a little bit of context there before we put Caleb on the spot. The SURF was like the Commander's Response Force, I believe it was, and before that it was the Commander's In Extremis Force. And one company in every Special Forces group had this sort of direct action mission, like they were dedicated towards a counterterrorism mission. And so they behaved or trained in sort of the same kind of way that you would expect from like Ranger Battalion or Delta or some of those guys, blowing down doors, doing unilateral operations. What's the efficacy of having a direct action company in Special Forces? That's debatable, which is probably what that guy was referencing. There's arguments about that. And the SURF was disbanded like a year and a half ago. They don't exist anymore. But Caleb, I'll throw this one over to you. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Looking back at it over the years now, as a 37-year-old man with no ego when it comes into that, I'd have to say most of the hate that at least I saw firsthand was pure jealousy. I'll be honest, man. They had the best weapons. They had the best kit. Who didn't want to live in the Baghdad Palace complex, going out every night to do no tea, no hanging out, shaking hands and kissing babies? Their whole mission in Iraq was to take their commandos and to go take the fight to the bad guys. Who didn't want to do that? What SF guy worth his beret doesn't want to go do that? So I kind of look at it through that lens. Did I meet some personalities when I did some training with A15? Guys in my class, or if I went to a school and they were there, that they had a elitist attitude? Yeah, I did. But I think looking at it from a more professional aspect, I don't have any hate on those guys. They have their mission, we had ours. If they had time in, they got to pick where they went to go. And if that's what they wanted to do, then, good on them, man. I hope they're the best that they could possibly have been. Are they the level of a tier 1 asset? No. Because they're not a tier 1 asset. Simple as that. But If you're looking for spiciness, if you're looking for drama, I don't have any, man. I don't hate on those guys. I mean, there was a bit of jealousy in me, but now I look back and I realize that I was where I needed to be on a regular ODA.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in fifth group, and I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they had their job, and I don't want to take, cheap shots at, and I was never on any of their ops or anything like that, so I have no input or anything to say about that. But I thought it was interesting in fifth group, at least in fifth group, there's this huge emphasis in that, like, it seemed like the entire group and everyone there wanted to be on the SIF. And it's like, hey, isn't this unit supposed to be about, like, unconventional warfare and FID and all this other kind of stuff? But it seemed like everyone just wanted to do that DA mission. And that's the thing that I think maybe was a little detrimental to Special Forces, losing track of our own identity and what mission we're supposed to be focused on.
Well, that's the sexy mission, though,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's every unit.
Kicking in a door or breaching a door and going in, and that's what you see in movies. You don't see guys working with Indige and spending 8 hours a day and training with them and then rolling out with them at night to go on ops.
And it's also, and bear with me when I say this, because I'm going to make somebody angry saying this, I'm sure. It's also the easy mission.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
It's easy. It's you find the bad guys, you go through a mission planning sequence, you go out there, blow down the doors, you shoot your guns. And when I say it's easy, I mean that it's very clear what the mission is, and the metrics are also very clear. So whether it's training, you can see where those bullets go on the paper. You can see if your guys are shooting good or not. You can count your success, judge your mission success by how many high-value targets you capture and kill. So the metrics are very clear, whereas with like UW or FID or something like that, where it's like, we made this village in Iraq 5% more friendly to American forces. Like, how do you even begin to quantify that? Very difficult to do. Very difficult to know.
It's really this. It's a simpler mission, because I know guys out there will go, well, direct action isn't easier than foreign internal defense or unconventional warfare, but it's simpler. You're only responsible for yourself and the guy in your left and right. You don't have to worry about the Indige, and all of their issues, and
it's not necessarily to throw shade either, because I mean, we were both Rangers. There's a reason why America needs all these different capabilities.
Yeah, it's not throw shade at all. And I think one of the other things is some guys claim they're as well trained as CAG. Well, nobody is well trained as CAG unless they have a 6-month pipeline to train, because, like, if you say as well trained as CAG or as Delta or whatever.
Boy, Dave, you're opening up the door. We're going to hear about the Sephardic class. We're going to hear all about Sephardic.
I'm not saying that they can't shoot as well or do close quarter battle as well, because I don't know. But that's not just what a tier 1 unit does in their OTC. They do all the airplane stuff. They do all the scaling. Building scaling. They do the driving. Like there's so much more to that training than just the shooting. So if they say we shoot as well as them, we can do close quarter battle as well as them, that's one thing. But there's a lot more to that training, I think. So.
Oh boy, here we go. Another spicy one for you, and then we'll get back to your own experience. This too, but
please.
Alejandro says, Caleb, of your deployments, what was your favorite partner force to work with, and how was Jack as a roommate? Any funny, embarrassing stories?
I'll answer that second one first. So I don't know if anybody knows this, except for probably Jack's daughter and his wife. He does not know how to clean dishes.
Oh, that's accurate.
He does not know how to clean dishes.
Yeah, I still have that problem.
Let's see here. What else? Besides, does anybody clean dishes? Great at cooking prepackaged pasta. He can do that. And what else? Oh, he falls asleep on the couch. That's what he does.
Still
he
do that.
Fall asleep on the couch
while watching TV.
Yes.
While watching TV, or just
while watching TV. Yeah.
What were his shows of choice back then? I'm going to guess Golden Girls, but I don't know.
He would watch a lot of anime.
Yeah, that's true.
He would rock anime, and where my room was, I could see underneath my door. I could see if there's like the TV was on or the lights were on, and it'd be like 3:00 in the morning, and I just opened the door and be like, Jack, what the fuck are you doing?
Nothing.
And he would wake up and be like, oh, I'm fine. And it's like, dude, just go to your bed. It's right
there. Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's accurate. I have no counter argument. Favorite partner force?
As far as like straight guys that I would want to go with me into combat, I'd say the Hesco or the Kurdish regional government, the Kurdish commandos, they're Ranger equivalent. Now, when we got them, we kind of finagled them, and we talked to their general. And their general was like, "Oh, you're Green Berets. Let me give you my best." Now, when I say his best, it's relative, right? Everything's subjective. These guys were all fairly fit, fairly motivated, but it's funny because you talk to them like man to man, one on one. And when you actually started talking to them, their reasons for joining the Kurdish army were as varied and weird as ours are to join the American army. There were ones that were just like, dude, I didn't have a job. I just needed fucking money to eat. And then all of a sudden you had the other end of the spectrum where it's like, well, I'm a Kurd and this is what we do. One son for the country and one son for the family, like all this stuff. And it was interesting. I really enjoyed working with the Kurdish commandos. When I was with them, I was with them 2010, 11. So they were still just kind of protecting their country. I'm very interested to see like if they had went and gave it to ISIS. I mean, we had a whole company. So we had like 120 guys. We trained the fuck out of those guys. I want to say, if we had been there as their advisors, I would say they probably would rival an American infantry company. Least favorite were the mixed Kurdish / Iraqi soldiers we had in twos. They showed up late. They claimed that they couldn't get their rifles out of the armory, and they had no ammo. They claimed not to have any bullets. And yeah, we only worked with them a couple weeks.
So, Caleb, it sounds like that last partner force you worked with, I mean, you could say they were rather flaccid, right?
Yes, they lacked virility.
They didn't really get the point, you could say.
No.
Well, that brings us to tonight's sponsor. Guys, we're here to help you tonight. We're selling you dick pills. It's not a joke, all right? I got some bullet points here. I got to read to you.
Oh, we got to hear this episode. Are you going to do this?
You go for it.
This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Look, guys, it's been a hell of a year, right? And personally, I feel like I've aged about 12 years, 15 years.
Feeling a little droopy?
Not always presenting arms, maybe. I don't know. But if you're like me and you're feeling your age more than you used to, especially in the bedroom, it's time to snap out of it. Spring is here, and it's time to get sprung with Blue Chew. So Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Because those prescription, Viagra and Cialis are very expensive, from what I've heard. Blue Chew's allegedly. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of erectile dysfunction.
You don't got to go through life like this, Kings. I'm telling you.
No, you don't. There's Blue Chew. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations like the one we're having now, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problem here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and talidomide. They're the ingredients that are Viagra and Cialis. Those are just the brands. Tablets are chewable, and Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. So if you could use a boost from extra confidence, and look, if you're getting older, if maybe you're not in the best shape of your life, if you're spending too much time, I don't know.
If you're as flaccid as an Iraqi partner force,
Yes.
you might need Blue Chew.
And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code TEAMHOUSE at checkout, and you'll just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code TEAMHOUSE, and you receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Also, I mean, it's great for prostate issues. I'm not saying that Blue Chew itself is, but like these are the drugs that they usually give you with prostate stuff and whatnot. So,
if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah,
That is true.
That's science. That's science. That's science.
So, guys, check it out.
Just in time for Pride Month.
We're not here to pass judgment,
No,
Caleb.
not at all.
No,
Exactly.
we stand at arms with our brethren out there. Whoever needs it, just make sure you use that discount promo code TEAMHOUSE.
Yeah, free month.
Go Team House.
So, Caleb, first time, or I shouldn't say not your first time to Iraq, but your first deployment with Special Forces to Iraq. How did that deployment go down? What was your job when you got there?
Well, let me start, like most good stories start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, E6, Green Beret. I just spent a month being a GI Joe all over the deserts. And now we fly in a Air Force Bird to Kuwait. And I'm familiar with this from the first deployment. We get off the Bird, and all of a sudden, it's not like a limo. It's like a limo SUV shows up. And I was like, what the fuck is this? We get in the limo SUV. We drive to a smaller airport. We get on a private airplane. This is when I realized, this is when somebody told me, because I was questioning all of this. I was like, I mean, I know SF is cool, but I didn't know it was this fucking cool. We were attached to NSW, or Naval Special Warfare, for my first deployment as an SF guy. So this is how NSW rolls.
Did they buy all this stuff with cocaine, or like how did that work?
I have no idea. All I know is that we got on this private airplane. We got snacks. We flew into Al Asad, which is for those that don't know, is a large air base in Western Iraq, secured by the Marines. And we're driving through the middle of the night to this compound, and all I can hear is rock music and weights clanging. And I'm like, first trip as an SF guy, I don't know what I'm getting ready to walk into. And there's like 3 or 4 shirtless dudes just working out. There's some beautiful woman also working out, covered in tattoos, music's blaring, and then there's gun trucks going by. And I'm like, I don't know what fucking movie I'm in, but I want to watch it. And we got a briefing, and we were out the next day. We went and relieved the ODA that was in Al-Qaim the next day.
And for our listeners who don't know, Naval Special Warfare is the SEALs, basically. I mean, so when he says he walks in and there are a bunch of shirtless dudes working out, that's what you expect. I imagine that on the private plane, there's probably also hair care products in addition to the food.
More shirtless dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so we showed up and we got a bunch of gear. Like, I didn't know that they were going to give us a bunch of gear. And it was better gear than we had. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'll take it. We get out to Al-Qaim, and we run into the ODA that's out there. And for anybody that's been deployed, this isn't a Special Forces exclusive thing. The people that you're replacing are always messed up. Because you're new and you're shiny and you're motivated and you're ready to go, win the war. And it was like, oh, these guys fucking suck. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, just pump the brakes, guy. You'll see. Mm-hmm. They had, I don't know, like 3 or 4 folders full of target packets. And of course, I just brand new SF guy. So I'm like, why aren't you guys hitting these targets? And they're like, all right, just let us get out of here before you start doing that.
Right.
And we had a mountain of munitions and weapons and all sorts of stuff in the corner, not organized, like a complete fucking safety violation. Just artillery rounds with C4 and PKCs.
Well, okay, Sergeant Major Phillips. Jesus.
Well, I mean, I'm not Safety Man McGee. I'm just saying maybe we should do something with the fucking dozens of rolling grenades around in the living area. That's me. So they left and we started operations. We picked up the partner force. It was the Alkheim SWAT team. So we looked at their program of instruction at a POI, and it was your typical like flat range stuff. And then we had some houses that we used as CQB buildings. And I volunteered to be the FID guy. There were two of us. And it was just like after the first couple weeks of doing this, I was like, man, this fucking sucks. Because it was just, we were following their POI. So I kind of brought up my partner. I was like, hey man, why don't we CQB is fun. It's cool. But why don't we just turn these guys into like really good infantrymen? And, we took off their PKCs from the trucks. PKC, for those who don't know, is the Iraqi version of a PKM, a squad automatic machine gun in 7.62. And we brought it back to basics. We taught them individual movement techniques. They were used to shooting at 25 meters and in. We pushed it out to 300 meters. So they're shooting 300 meters with their AKs. They didn't believe me. They didn't believe me that their gun could reach out that far. So that's what we did. We did patrols with them deep in the desert. We did hits inside the area, the city limits of Alkheim. We were just kind of a Swiss Army knife around that area.
When you said it's their POI, did they develop it, or was some other SF team way before you guys develop? And POI is
program of
instruction, right? It's basically how their ops and how they learn and their curriculum, basically.
Yes. Well, no, it's kind of one of those things that if you look on any 18 Bravo's computer in any group anywhere, it's going to be the same POI that's been copied and pasted. That's why it was so lame, because as soon as I looked at it, I realized what we were doing.
Right.
And it's the easy button, right? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I just need to get these guys trained just enough that they won't shoot me when we go on patrol.
Right.
But I mean, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to spend 8 months with these guys. I want to do stuff that I think is fun. So we went out and shot RPGs. We did all sorts of stuff that they weren't used to doing because it required work. It required doing something extra.
Right.
Like me and the Echo, the communication sergeant on the team, went to the trash yard, and they had all these armored plates that had been thrown away. They threw the chicken plate that goes on a turret. It's a big steel plate.
Uh-huh.
And we loaded them up in the back of a pickup truck. And then he went out there with me with e-tools and shovels, and we buried them 2 feet deep so they would still be sticking up over the ground. So they were reactive targets.
Uh-huh.
And we turned it into a live fire maneuver range. And these Iraqis, I mean, to say that they'd never done fire maneuver would be an understatement, because they're used to shooting on the range, right? They're used to shooting on yard lines. And, the first time you slap the shit out of one of them and tell them to, shoot your machine gun, do it now. And then you have to wait for translation because he doesn't speak English. But, no, it was a great time. I really enjoyed that deployment. We spent Christmas of 2007 on the Syrian-Iraqi border. Operation Frozen Titty Balls. And then Operation Frozen Titty Balls 2 was approximately 35 miles north after we got back. There's just so many little vignettes from that trip that I could talk about it, but it's kind of one of those.
Pick a couple highlights, throw them out.
Feel free to talk about it. Like, we love hearing about that kind of shit. All
right, so the number one HVI, or high value individual, in all of SOTF West, Special Operations Task Force West, the geographical area that we were responsible for, was a guy named Badran Turki. He was a IED and network head honcho, and he happened to live. He's from and lived in our city. So obviously, we're just driving around looking for this guy because it's quite a feather in the old cap if you could kill or capture Badran Turki. And one night, the bat phone rings, and the team leader calls everybody in the ops center, the operations center, and he said, "Hey, we got a hit. Somebody's saying that Badran Turki is at this grid, and that grid just happened to be in Iraq, in our target city." So we started spinning it up. Me and the other 18 Charlie had made this 40-pound satellite charge that was probably, 8 feet wide, and it was going to be awesome because this target compound had a 18-inch, 24-inch thick wall. So we weren't going to try to cram 60 Iraqi SWAT guys over breaching ladders. We're just going to blow a hole in the fucking wall. So we had that set up. We brought the Iraqis in. We confiscated all their phones. We had contingency plans. We had all sorts of, everything was going. 160th was flying from Baghdad to come pick us up. And our alternate, because, 160th, they had more important customers than us. Mm-hmm. So our alternate was we were going to con the Marines into giving us a ride. We weren't going to mention who it was for. And we were going to say, like, oh, we need to go out there and recover this fucking pair of nods we dropped or something. So we had 160th inbound, and we had the Marines on the horn. And then everything's ready to go, and the bat phone rings again. And it's like, oh, your MH-47s, your 160th assets are turning around. They're going to go pick up another client to go hit that target. So we immediately just started loading the trucks. We're like, fuck this. We're going to outrun them. They had to fly all the way back to Baghdad. Pick those guys up and fly all the way back out here. Fuck that. We're going to go hit it right now. And we loaded the trucks. We got the Iraqis ready to go. And then we got another call from the bat phone saying, like, hey, the indicator says that he's not there anymore. And it was like, well, fuck it. We're already dressed. Let's just go hit it anyway. And it's like, no, you can't. So that was the almost time that we killed the number one HVT or HVI in Soda West. However, Ranger Battalion did kill him a year later.
Really? Was he still number one when they did? Because I can't imagine other players allowing that to happen.
I'm not sure what his status was in Stack, but it's a famous video if you dig through it. It's the one where you can watch two UH-60s land and like 30 guys clown car out of the UH-60s and just ventilate this fucking vehicle. You see a guy get out and he runs to the back, and you see a bunch of guys online trying to kill or capture him.
I haven't seen that. We'll find it and we'll put it on the Patreon for people who are looking for it.
Yeah, we'll pull it up later.
Yeah. So you actually, when you said HVI, because when you originally said HVI, they used to be HVTs. Did that become not politically correct anymore, that you can't call a human being a target, you have to call him an individual?
I think that's kind of like, that was kind of the evolution, right? So at first it was HVT. I remember in 2003 it was HVT.
Right.
In 2003 we still used the term kill list. So different war. And then it was HVT, and then like sometime in 2007, 2008, 2009, it became HVI.
You remember it started off, we could call them fighting age males.
Right.
And then
military age males, yeah.
And then it became military age males. Yeah. And then it became something else even after that. Yeah. It was like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a time also, I think, when they started like trying to shy away from the whole capture kill operation. It's like, well, you shouldn't say kill. You're going to capture them.
They're snuggle cuddle operations.
Yeah. But I didn't know it made the transition from a high value target to high value individual over the years.
Well, I think it's kind of one of those things where it was like, it was pushed from the top down. Everybody knows that like an alive terrorist can give you more information than a dead one. Sure. I think everybody can assume that. It just became, when we were starting to hand stuff over to the government of Iraq justice system, like we had to get warrants for every raid we did. We had to get a fucking like a legit warrant signed off by an Iraqi judge. I mean, we would cover up most of the pertinent information.
Yeah.
So that it couldn't get leaked. But I mean, it was, even in 2007, it started to look more like law enforcement operations.
And it was it actually your partner force, though, who had the authority to make the arrest, according to the warrant?
Yes.
And you were just accompanying them, basically?
Yeah. Yes. We were just advising them through the actions on.
So let's jump over to second deployment. I mean, you can walk us through briefly, through that cycle, coming back home, training back up for the next mission. If you got sent to any schools in the meantime, probably you and I getting into trouble somewhere along the ways, but then jocking up for the next deployment.
Jocking up for the next deployment, we were selected for this mission that included a lot of information sharing and building intelligence capability between the government of Iraq and Americans and the Kurdish regional government. And it was basically like we would always joke that we were like the cultural affairs team, because we would have a meeting with an Iraqi official one day, and then the next day we'd meet with a Kurdish official, and we'd be playing telephone between the two of them, because culturally and officially they couldn't really talk, because officially the Kurdish regional government wasn't a government, it wasn't a country, it was part of Iraq. So we were there to try to smooth that over. The team that had come there before us had gotten they'd gotten in trouble because they had a phone that had information from, I don't know, the previous 8 years of war. So they had very important phone numbers on it that they were not supposed to have. So they got in trouble for that, and the whole program got I don't want to say it got shut down, but it got put in kind of a holding status. So when we showed up, all of our equipment, all of our vehicles, everything that we would normally fall in on, were just shoved in a bunch of Connexes in a back lot in Balad. Balad, for those of you that don't know, is a huge base, or was a huge base north of Baghdad, that supported northern operations and eastern operations in Iraq. And for an ODA full of SF guys at the group headquarters, it was fucking terrible.
I bet.
What was terrible about it?
Haircuts and shaves every day, which sounds petty. Don't get me wrong. That's petty, really. In the grand scheme of things, who cares? Shave and get a haircut. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, Master Sergeant so-and-so, I saw two of your guys working out over the place with no shirts on. You should probably fucking fix that. And now my team sergeant has to walk over and be like, hey, you guys are over here working without shirts on. You need to put your shirts on.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it's like, well, the group sergeant major couldn't have come and told us that.
Yeah.
Like, we got picked for, we accidentally volunteered to train all the support guys how to use machine guns. And I was with my buddy. We were sitting there talking. There was a convoy lined up, and just for shits and giggles, we asked the guy behind the 50. We're like, "Hey, do you even know how to do immediate action on that thing?" And he just looked at us dead in the eye and said, "No." And it's like, "Well, fuck, okay." And then like so me and the other SF guy, we jumped up on the vehicles. We kind of showed them how to immediate action on the 50s. We did headspace timing, kind of showed them how to do it. And the team leadership kind of brought us down. They're like, "Hey, I appreciate what you're doing. You guys are good NCOs, but don't do that." And I was like, I wonder why. And the reason why was, if we find ourselves doing that and important people see us doing that, that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to go out and find a mission. We're not going to find a team house. We're going to stay at the base and train the support guys how to do their jobs. So, we offered to take a couple people to the range. We did that a little bit, but our primary focus was to get off Balad and go try to take the fight to the enemy. And then there was the great Iraq tour of 2009, where we sent out guys to almost every team house in Iraq. You saw my team sergeant and current sergeant major in 5th group come hang out with you guys for a little bit. Was it your team house they met with that burned up girl?
No, not me. Are you talking about the girl that got electrocuted and ended up dying?
Yes. Can you tell that story? I don't remember very much of it.
That was another redheaded 18 Delta medic who I haven't talked to him in years. He got a full ride to med school. But there was, as I recall, this was not my team. It was another team, another location out west somewhere. This girl got electrocuted somehow. Had to do with if anyone's ever been to Iraq and you see it, it's like just a clusterfuck of electrical wires all over the place. She gets electrocuted, and one of our medics tried to help her and keep her alive, and she was kept alive for a couple days before she died. And that's all what I recall from that incident. I wasn't there for it, but I remember it happening.
I remember because I think our Delta was with you guys too, or our medic. Now that you're saying this, is bringing it back. She did something. It was electrical wire was involved. She was wearing the normal dress of an Iraqi woman, and it caught fire, and it burned all over her body. That was the real sad part. That's like they came back from the trip to your team house kind of bummed because of that, because she was horribly burned, and all these 18 Deltas were just trying to keep her alive, and they wouldn't give them an air asset to move her, which, I mean, pragmatically, I understand. She's a local national. She got hurt doing local national things. We had nothing to do with it, but they ended up doing a scadiotomy or something. I can't remember what it's called, where they cut. They cut the skin.
They have to relieve it. Yeah.
So they did that. Yeah, they stayed with her for 3 or 4 days, and she finally ended up dying. They came back from that visit kind of. I mean, they weren't like depressed and like, staring at the ceiling or anything, but it was kind of a downer.
Yeah, no, that wasn't us. I think those were the guys who were further out west. I just remember, your team sergeant at that time, he spoke fluent Arabic, so I remember him having like really in-depth conversations with the Iraqis. I was jealous of him, really. He's very good. And your buddy, who's the sergeant major now, he had his poopy face on when he showed up at our base, because he's like, yeah, we're looking for a mission. I don't think this is it. I'm like, damn, bro. Like, I'm sorry.
See, so we broke up into two teams. So we did split team ops for like the first 2 months. And that Team West, hit all you guys out west. So they went to a bunch of places. And our hope for that split team was to find somewhere that was kinetic. We're like, oh man, where's the fight? Let's just go see. Let's go see if there's a fight over there. Because my half of the split team was to hit north and east. And up north, there was nothing because the Kurds had it on lockdown. And out east, due to the Iranian influence, was super sensitive. So we didn't really know what was going on to the east. We ended up spending, just due to weather and air, we ended up spending 3 weeks at a small combat outpost, like the farthest east you could go in Iraq, like butted up against the border. And it was like some legit war stuff, man. Like there was the Hesco Barriers for those guys. I mean, we talked about them last time, but like Hesco Barriers are these big bulletproof barriers that are full of sand. I mean, they were torn apart. There were trailers and shoes or containerized housing units that were just blown apart, that they just knocked off the foundation so they could put a new one on. And like I said, we were there for 3 weeks. I think we heard one mortar once. And we were all just kind of just waiting, because the team who was there was like, yeah, man, this area is pretty fucking crazy. We get shot at every time we go on patrol. There's IEDs everywhere. And here we are sitting on the couch eating their fucking bread. Just like, all right, man, when's the war going to show up? Like, we're here. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So that was a very awkward 3 weeks.
So your team basically became like traveling salesmen, looking for like trying to sell vacuums everywhere, looking for work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was like I remember one of my first questions is like, how many 18 Charlies you got on the team? Oh, two? That's cool. Do you want like a third, or what's going on here? Do you need somebody you need like a latrine NCO? I can do that. So we would do that, and then the warrant officer and the captain, because I was on that half of the team, they would go in and talk with the captain and the warrant officer of the other team for like hours, and they'd come out all poopy faced. And it's like, all right, well, I guess we're not living here. No, we're going back, man. This isn't going to work out. So we did that. We probably went to 3 or 4 different bases. I was trying to push us to a rather large base in the north central part of Iraq, because the ODA there had a very nice compound all by itself out on the far edge of the airfield. They had a big partner force. There were a bunch of cool dudes who were willing to share with us. And it was near a rather large Iraqi city that had access to boost. So I am sitting there trying to think of second and third order effects here. And that's actually what I put on. So like as all the team members, we would submit our lists and our pros and cons. That's actually what I put on my pro, was like, hey, morale's going to be pretty high. Like we're really going to enjoy this deployment. And they're like, oh, Caleb, we can't put that on the official thing. It's like, I know, but I'm just saying. So we eventually ended up going to twos. My team actually was the one. We went to twos first. So twos Kamaratu is a small town. I can't even remember anymore. It's probably 30 or 45 miles away from Balad. And twos Kamaratu is a very interesting town because it's like a mini Iraq. But why I say that is because it's not north of what's known as the Green Zone. It's not in Kurdistan. But it had quite a sizable portion of Kurds. And it was about 33% across the board. So you had your Kurds, you had your Iraqis, and then you had Turkoman. So it was very interesting. That whole area, that part of the Euphrates River Valley was known as a bed down location and a travel through site for insurgents coming from Iran into the main fighting areas of the Sunni Triangle, Mosul, or it would be a stopover on their ways down to Baghdad. So there wasn't by the time we got there wasn't a lot of kinetic activity. And, at first it's like, oh, that sucks. That means they're not here. It's like, well, no, that definitely means they are here. They just don't want to fight where they're coming to rest and hang out. So it was interesting. We got there. We were the only soft unit on that base. It was a Brigade Special Troops Battalion. So it was a bunch of mechanics, MPs, and just support troops.
Now, how did you? Actually, I think before I ask you how you found that base, I think it's a good moment to talk about something we've never talked about on the Team House before, because you mentioned it, and I think Jack is uniquely qualified to talk about this. Let's discuss the idea of being at the flagpole, being stationed at the flagpole, and why it sucks so much. Because that's what you were talking about, right? Yes. Like our viewers who don't have any military experience, can you guys kind of talk about the idea of being at the flagpole and what it is?
And for me, and I only passed through this area, thank God, or I would have shot myself. But Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan, where the Jock was, and that place was just it literally looked like a concentration camp.
And also a third.
It had these walls around it with towers, and the sky was always gray. It looked like a World War II movie. And the guys stayed in these Quonset huts, and everywhere you went, there's just Xeroxed papers stuck everywhere with the rules. So these are the rules of the coffee maker. This is how you're allowed to use the coffee maker. Here's the rules for the showers, how you're allowed to use the showers. Here's the rule for the shitters, how you're allowed to. And it's because there's these officers and senior NCOs, they have nothing better to do than just go around and yell at guys because they're wearing their black fleece that they're issued to the chow hall. And And their retaliation is they would make the Rangers walk in squad wedge-shaped formations from the compound to the chow hall. It's how much more asinine can we be? We say we're a professional organization, but we act like a bunch of fucking children whenever we're in garrison. So, yeah, naturally, from my point of view, it's much better to be out on what looks like a Vietnam-era fire base than...
Right. Where the... Go ahead. Sorry, Caleb.
Well, I mean, So we can start with the positives, right? Positives that we all, civilian, military, veteran, whatever, can agree with. Food.
Yeah.
Food's better. The gym is better. The PX is there. If you like DVDs, you can get the newest movies there. There's probably a pool and a movie theater there. If that's your jam, that's your jam. But nobody joins the Army as a Ranger or SF guy or an infantryman and wants that. Don't get me wrong, it's nice. Burger King is nice every couple months. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we joined to go lift fucking ammo cans full of rocks as our weights because we're out there, hooking and jabbing.
Right. Yeah. So for our viewers who don't know, the flagpole is where the command is. Whatever. And the reason I said you were uniquely qualified is because you were a 3rd Battalion. Which is where the regimental headquarters is. So the flagpole is wherever the headquarters is, and it tends to be very top heavy. A bunch of people with a lot of rank with nothing better to do with their time than to harass people with regulations, with rules, with
the gravel. Oh, the gravel! So much drama about the gravel. You always got to have gravel on these bases. There's dust. Got to get rid of the dust.
Gravel's so deep that you can't even fucking walk in it safely as a grown man.
We got to pay some warlord $12 million for gravel so that we can eliminate dust on the fucking base. Like, God bless America.
Yeah.
I just talking about it, I can see the flag fluttering in the breeze in my mind's eye.
And safety belts are a big thing at flagpoles. Like, I remember in Bagram when it got bigger and all the soldiers had to wear their safety, their running belt, like reflective belts across their
I remember a sergeant major from the 101st Airborne chewing my ass on Fort Campbell one time in the gym because we were in the gym and I wasn't wearing a reflective belt. And he's like, "Where's your reflective belt? You got to be wearing that. That's the standard." He's like, "I'm wearing it. You think I like wearing a reflective belt in the gym? I don't like wearing this stupid thing, but I have to enforce the standard." It's like, "Hey, man, you're an E9. You're like a brigade sergeant major. Just change it. There's no reason you need to wear this stupid thing inside a building. Like, what's it doing for you?" I don't know. Anyway, that's my rant on that.
How did you guys find this base that you eventually wound up at?
I would like to say that it was based on our guile and nerve. But it was, in reality, it was the group commander looking at the map and seeing a place that didn't have an ODA. And he went, "I'm going to put you guys right here." And our team leader, God bless him, who works at the Pentagon now, he squared off and he's like, "Sir, that makes 0 sense. Why would you put us there?" And the colonel gave him the explanation the colonel would give the captain. And he said, "You're going there and we're fucking done talking about it." So we packed up, we packed all of our stuff, and we flew to FOB. I'll remember it here in a minute, but we flew to TUS Camaratu, and that is when the building began. As 18 Charlie, I was nominally in charge of the construction of the base, but in reality, our 18 Fox was like a great amateur carpenter. Our 18 Zulu, our team sergeant, spoke fluent Arabic. So he was the one kind of in charge of all the stuff. When I wasn't doing like soldier stuff, I was reduced to being the guy who walked around with the clipboard saying like, "Do you need more screws? Do you need more lumber?" It was interesting. I learned a lot of stuff about logistics and having to call in line hauls, and I stood out on a helicopter landing zone for hours, just receiving more and more supplies. And then interspersed with all this building and maintenance that we had to do, we still had patrolling and soldier shit to do. So it was like I look back at it now, and it's a very SF deployment.
Right.
I mean, we didn't shoot a lot of people. We didn't do a lot of like cool dynamic things, but it was okay. I'm going to put my hammer down. And I'm going to go get my body armor on. We're going to go do a patrol to meet this guy to gather intelligence for the local area and maybe go kill some other bad guys. And then when I come back, I still have to string concertina wire and fix the plumbing. And like, it was a good trip. It was definitely
reminds me of I read a novel that was written by one of the first Green Berets. He was on one of the first A teams into Vietnam. And just some of these very vivid recollections that he penned into this novel about like just with like a deuce-and-a-half truck full of supplies, and they'd like drive out into the jungle somewhere and literally just chop down part of the jungle and build a SFOB in there. I mean, it's just what it reminds me listening to you talk about this.
Well, it was cool because it was being the only SOF or even combat arms unit on the base. Like there was a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of chicken shit, as George Patton would say, a lot of chicken shit Army stuff that we had to deal with. But there was also a lot of stuff that because the people in charge of the base didn't understand. They're like, oh, cool. That sounds cool. You're an SF guy. So like that led to me using demo to blow a fucking trench inside of our compound to put communication wire in it. And I was like, hey, boss man, hear me out. I just want to blow a trench instead of having to hack at it with a fucking pick.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, I mean, okay, if that's you're the demolitions expert, you tell me you can do it, let's do it. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. But I did get to fucking try it and blow up a fucking trench in the middle of our compound. It was just a bunch of silly stuff that we got these giant steel gates, like 10 meter tall gates, like 10 meter tall castle gates. And we were welding concertina wire to them. It looked fucking rad. And we're all sitting there. We had a team meeting and we was like, what are we going to paint on the side of it? And I was like, well, I mean, obviously we should paint our fucking team number on the side of it.
And some skulls. Some skulls, obviously.
Obviously. I mean, I wanted it full fucking force. Like, do not enter, dead men tell no tales, some shit like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then we just decided on blood red.
Now, were these gates facing the rest of the base, the conventional military base?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It was blood fucking red. And it was one of those things, like, they got done painting it, and we're all kind of standing outside looking at it. And I was like, maybe we can make it less bright. Nah, we're just going to keep it.
I'm curious because this, like, you guys showed up, you were the first special operations force there. There's a mystique on a base like that. Like, there's a mystique about guys like you, right? Like, how did people interact with you when you guys showed up, when you were trying to get things done, when you had to go to their, supply guys or interact with them?
Oh, it was, there's actually a lot of tension.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it was tension born out of the mystique, but it was like, our team sergeant almost fucking straight up tops off threw down with this other master sergeant who was kind of the ops sergeant of the base. Cause we had to keep using they had this giant crane, and it was the only crane that could move, concrete walls. It could move, we needed to use it all the time. And one day I went over there to coordinate to use it, and he just fucking chewed me out. He's like, you guys don't give a shit. You're always using us. As far as I'm concerned, it says U.S. Army on your on your chest, just like it says mine. You're no different than me. Where does it say that you're special on your uniform? And I looked at my buddy, and he's like, don't do it. And I want to be like, I mean, on this head, it says it right there, but I didn't. And I was like, you know what, Sergeant? I'm gonna have my boss come talk to you. And he's like, you fucking have him come here. I was like, all right, cool, man. I don't know. You do not know what you're talking about, but all right. So I go, and at this time, my team sergeant is sitting in his Ranger panties with no shirt on, typing this long fucking email to like some colonel somewhere, telling him why we're going to take his mortars. And I was like, hey, Jeremy, blah, 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 story. And he's like, all right, I'll be right fucking back. And he just gets in. All the other vehicles were taken, so he did drive this shitty little bongo truck over there that didn't really work. So he's like messing with this shitty broken bongo truck. It stops, it dies halfway there, so he just like fucking walks the rest of the way. Still in his chonies. And he opens the door, and we just hear, of course, like two scared little kids, we're following behind, like, ooh, we want to watch. And we hear the door slam, and we just hear screaming and yelling for about 2 minutes. And then he comes outside, and he's like, all right, we'll have the crane in about half an hour. And we're like, oh, man. We didn't hear that story of what happened inside that building until the deployment was over. Basically, it was just like that the other master sergeant said the same thing. He's like, I don't give a fuck who you are. And my boss man, Jeremy, would just like you must not know who the fuck you're talking about. I'm old school, man. We'll fucking do this right now. I don't give a fuck. It's just you and me. I'll lock the door. And the guy was like, whoa, let's fucking hold on. Let's talk about it for a minute. So there was that. There was a time I got into it with the male fucking clerks. We had just gotten back from a week out in the desert. And I was expecting a package. You know, I was like, hey, man, I'm a fucking package. So I walk up to the door, and on the door they have hours of operation. And I was like, well, clearly this is a joke because we're in a war zone. So you're fucking retarded if you think I'm going to listen to this. So we open the door and we walk in, and it's these two E4s sitting behind their desks, YouTubing it up or whatever they were fucking doing back in 2009. And I was like, hey, I came to pick up the mail for the ODA. And it's like, oh, well, we're closed. I was like, well, no, you're not. You're right here. My mail's over there in that yellow bag. I know that's our mail. And it's like, no, we're closed. And it's like, all right. Because we weren't wearing rank. We had nothing on. And I was like, okay, I feel really gay for saying this. Specialist, get up and give me that bag of mail. And I pulled my cat card out and laid it on the thing. And I was like, I don't want to do this, but you forced me to do this. It's like, I don't care who you are, what rank you are. I'm off work. And I was like, all right, not a fucking problem. Where's your boss? And her boss was a staff sergeant. I was like, hey, fucking staff sergeant, give me my fucking mail. Or I'm going to go to your fucking first sergeant. And, you know, in the end, we got our mail. And it was just one of those things. It was like, I didn't want to do that, but we are in the Army.
In the end, did you have to go to the first sergeant, or did the staff sergeant see the light?
He saw the light, but it was kind of one of those things that we just ended up going to the first sergeant anyway, because I didn't want to have to get into this fight every week to get mail.
Yeah.
Then there were just a lot of rumors too, right? Because there were females on the post, and I mean, hey man, SF guy's gonna SF guy,
right?
But it was like we were on the ground maybe 6 days, and already the rumors were going around. It's like, oh my god, are you guys having sex with this person? Are you guys having sex with, like, dude, we just showed up. Give us a while, we'll get to it. We got in trouble there was a pack of wild dogs that was eating up the trash, and they were kind of attacking people on the way to the chow hall at night. So our junior 18 Bravo decided that he was going to be fucking anti-dog Batman, and he had a silenced UMP, and he fucking murked these dogs like right on base. And we kind of, like, before he was talking about it, we're like, all right, dude, let's do some mission planning. We're Green Berets. Let's be smart about this. What's the most probable course of action? What's the most dangerous course of action? Like, what if you fucking snag around and you hit somebody? How are we gonna? And you know, he broke it down, and in the end, he did his little chart, and he realized that the risk was worth the reward. And by the way, the team chain of command had no idea this was happening, because obviously they kiboshed that immediately.
Yeah, so there's no supervision on this risk safety matrix that he was drawing up in his chew.
Our Carver matrix was completely unobserved.
Yeah.
So yeah, he went out there and he smoked these dogs, and like then he picked up the bodies and threw them all in the back of our Hilux, and we all aided in this crime by going out and burying them, because we weren't going to just leave a bunch of fucking blown apart dogs everywhere. And the next morning, you would have thought that it was fucking Waco. There were people crying outside. There were people like so mad. They came up to our red gate, were banging on the gate, and it was like, "Hey, man, we were just getting rid of vermin on the base." Like,
why were there feral? I mean, there were a lot of feral dogs, like off the bases. Why were there feral dogs on that base?
Because it was such a large base that they couldn't have.
They just walked through the concertina wire.
Yeah, and it was not a very big base. There's only like maybe 3 companies of people there.
So it was. There weren't Hescos around the whole base. It was just concertina wire.
On one side, it was just concertina wire.
Oh, I see. Okay, interesting.
Those are the big things that stuck out to me. I mean, there was a time our bathroom trailer got broken, and even the Iraqis wouldn't clean it up. So I had to get like mop level 4 and go digging through human feces to try to fix this trailer. I mean, I didn't get an award for that. I got a thank you. That's pretty much it. But it is what it is. It was an experience.
That's ARCARM material if I've ever heard it.
So this was deployment, number 3?
Yes.
Okay. So you ended up on this base building up this fob. I mean, did you ever get things up and rolling and operational to the point that you guys were happy with?
Yeah, we did. We had about a solid 2 months of full operations after that point. So we got everything in there. We got all of our generators, flew them all the way from Germany. Generators were up and running. We had guard towers. So it became the local battalion commander, like we became kind of like his secondary talk. And he was like, hey, straight up, if some shit happens, I'm running to your fucking base because your base is way better defended than ours. So we were doing things. Eventually, me and the spear carriers of the team, we were going out on local patrols with the local coalition forces. So the MPs would do route clearance. We'd go out with them. If the local head shed was going on a KLE, we would usually hitch a ride. And then as soon as they would get to the KLE, me and another SF guy would just disappear into the crowd, and we would walk around and try to talk to people in Arabic and try to develop any sources or relationships we could do there. I look back at it, and that was extremely dangerous. It was just two of us just fucking free gunning all over Tuz Kamaratu. We tried to establish relationships with the police, the local Iraqi army garrison, the local KRG garrison. That was when, I don't know if you guys remember, but it happened in 2009. An IA soldier, an Iraqi army soldier, shot like 4 striker guys. They were in a perimeter, and the Iraqi, I guess he had words with one of the Americans, and it was a combined Iraqi army coalition force patrol, and he just turned around and started dumping rounds into the Americans. That was really the first blue on blue kind of thing that I experienced. And I didn't even experience it. It just happened in an adjacent area to me. So from then on, we had to start really picking up our internal security.
Did you guys have Indige for your internal security on the basis, on the larger base itself?
Yes. We had a combination of contractors of Kenyan or Ugandan contractors and Iraqis. The Iraqis handled the outer security, and then the contractors handled the access into the American part. But you would see Iraqis driving around in their vehicles all the time, which made it even weirder because we were the only people that carried hot weapons.
Yeah. What was, so there were no other combat arms forces, not just special operations, but no combat arms, no infantry. Yeah. What were people on the base doing? What was the base's mission? Why were they there?
That is a very good question.
Okay.
10 plus years later, I'm still trying to find out why they're there. Did
any of them leave the wire at all?
Their MP company minus was kind of their maneuver unit. Their big thing is they were a layover spot for convoys that were going from Balad to Mosul, or Mosul to Baghdad, or they had repair facilities. A BSTB, or Brigade Special Troops Battalion, for those that don't know, was an invention of the mid 2000s. And what it did was it took all the specialty support troops out of their specialty support companies and kind of put them in one special location. So rigger, like in an airborne unit, you have riggers there. This was actually just a way to get their lieutenant colonel a actual battle space, block on his OER,
right,
on his evaluation report. So he's, I think he's a logistics guy.
So they're kind of like a Love's truck stop.
Yes, very much so. But it was a terrible truck stop because you're still eating ARATs, you're still eating out of cans. The tents were terrible. They were just literally a tent with some cots. But it wasn't, you weren't out in the wild. You had someplace safe to sleep. So that's what it was.
Yeah. So how did you end up leaving things at that fob by the time you guys were ripping out of there?
Oh, they had, it started, the only structure we had was an abandoned Iraqi command bunker with no power. By the time we left, they had 24 containerized housing units. They had a ASP or ammunition supply point. They had a range. They had 4 MRAPs, 2 Humvees. They had a whole fleet of indigenous vehicles. We were trying to put in a mortar position before we left, and we built a laundry facility, and we built a med shed. So it was a nice team house. I was very proud of what we did.
Coming along, man. So pulling out of Iraq on this deployment, heading back home, I was wondering if we could take a little segue here, because your team, as I recall, I mean, you guys were also a free fall team, right?
Yes, we were.
And could you talk to us a little bit? Because you were a MFF jump master, I think.
Well, yes, I was.
Yes. Can you talk to us a little bit about the military freefall capability on a special forces team and kind of how you saw it evolve during these, as the years went on?
Yeah. So when we first got there, the freefall guys, you always knew who they were, because when the company was doing a jump, they were the ones that showed up late in Ranger panties with Gentex, with like Gentex black helmets. Now, Gentech helmet has absolutely zero tactical use at all. It's just merely an air item. And that's kind of how it was for my first year or two on the team. Like that, we're the free fall guys. After 2009, things started really changing, because the tier 1 units were starting to send more of their TTPs or tactics, techniques, procedures down to us. And the old school military free fall guys started retiring. So like people started asking the questions like, why don't we jump with just our regular combat helmet? Why don't we jump with just our uniform on? Like now, if I jump in a flight suit, now when I land, I have to wear a fucking flight suit, which sucks.
Right.
So guys started questioning, and things started happening. And the free fall committee was ran by a bunch of really like progressively minded guys. And they're like, oh man, what happens? Why do we need to use the weapons case? Fuck that. Let's just do this. Why do I have to tie my M4 to my parachute harness? Why don't I just have it on clips that hang right here? So when I get down on the ground, I just unclip it. Mm-hmm. So things really changed. Jumping at night with nods on. Like that was, when I did it for the first time, I was angry. I was angry that nobody had thought of doing it beforehand. I was like, why the fuck am I not wearing night vision goggles at night while I'm flying this parachute? So that was that changed everything. And a lot of that had to do with there was a combat jump, a 10th group military free fall combat jump that occurred late 2008. And that kind of showed us the flaws in the way we had been training previously. Because Jack, this, in CONUS, in training operations, the free fall team jumps on this nice big DZ that's well marked, and everybody lands and everybody joins up, and then everybody hands their parachutes off, and then the mission starts. Mm-hmm. Well, this 10th group team did an actual military free fall insertion, and out of the 9 guys who jumped, like something ridiculous, like 5 of them were military free fall instructors. So you would think that this team is stacked and that they're going to be very successful. It went terribly. Like they didn't link up. I think one guy broke his leg, and it took them hours to finally get together. And in the end, they just ended up doing a normal vehicular assault on the objective. The idea was for the Americans to free fall in, get eyes on the objective, and then call the Iraqis in, which is doctrinally what a military free fall team is supposed to do. So when that debacle happened, thankfully nobody got killed. Guys started asking questions. Why do we train this way? We never do it this way in real life. Why don't we train like normal? So that kind of changed a little bit. Also, it went from halo majority operations to hey-ho, or high altitude, high opening. And just like anything else, it's another tool in the tool bag, right? If it doesn't work in that situation, don't try to make it work. Mm-hmm. But it went from, we're just doing this super cool Army skydiving to like, no, this is work. This is real training. You're training for an actual mission. And when guys kind of went from that that transition of like, I'm Army skydiving to, this is just a way to work, and I need to be as tactical and as competent as possible. I think it made things so much better.
I think there are a couple things that like people would be interested in hearing, sort of like the flight suit, like the Nomex, like that it's Nomex, which is a material which is fire retardant. Pilots wear it. And it used to be very high speed, like everybody thought it was so cool, but it's hot as balls.
Yep.
It's like hot, like it's miserable. And then your weapons in the weapon case, I think there's a really interesting point that for both Static Line and I guess Halo, when we used to jump out of airplanes, we didn't have our weapons handy. They were in a weapons case, a padded weapons case to protect them, which means that if you like encountered resistance, you were kind of screwed.
And so that was the thing, right? Is the whole flight suit thing. They were very hot. You couldn't really roll the sleeves up that well. And my biggest thing was like, man, I need pockets. I have so many things. I need pockets to put these things in. And a flight suit does not have a lot of pockets. And plus they're not very durable, which, I mean, you take a knee in rocks somewhere, or you slip and bust your ass because it's nighttime, and now you have a giant rip in your pants for the rest of the mission. Like, that's not cool.
I just remember being freezing cold when we're doing the jump, especially jumping in Nevada. And then by the time you get down to the ground, you're just covered in sweat. Like, oh God, let me die. It's horrible.
Yes. And with that stuff is like, there's little tricks of the trade that unless you have exited at 18 or 20,000 feet and flown for 30 minutes, you don't know. Like, when I went to 8 Acre Advanced Tactical Infiltration, like I learned about surgical gloves underneath your shooting gloves, and your hands aren't going to be warm by any means, but it keeps them just warm enough that you can use them. Whereas if you just jump out of an airplane at 20,000 feet with your mechanics gloves, you're going to have a hard time. And then there's just a lot of stuff that I think we, as an organization, we've gotten so comfortable doing that when we had to do it for real, the reality kind of bit us. But thank God it did.
Kim, you've mentioned Ranger panties a couple times. What are those?
I mean, I assume both of you are currently wearing them right now. So they're small, silky shorts, running, exercising, sleeping shorts. I don't know. I think the inseam is like, 3 inches, maybe.
If that.
Yeah. If that. I think they're engineered to make your balls sweaty as soon as you put them on. Like, as soon as you put them on. And peeing in them is a chore as well. But I mean, being that we have 2 United States Army Rangers right here, I'm pretty sure you guys can describe them a lot better than I can.
No magic.
Not the Nutcracker shorts. I mean, that was adequate.
They're magic.
And why go to using Hey-Ho instead of Halo? Why was this seen as the preferred method, that you're going to come out at 20,000 feet, whatever it is, pop your chute open, and then maneuver it under canopy for 30, 40 minutes, however long it takes to get down to the ground? Why was that seen as the preferred method?
Well, like anything else in the military, it's METTC, Mission, Enemy, Time, Terrain, and Civilian Considerations. Sorry to throw out the acronym. But like the whole Halo thing of jumping out high and pulling your chute low came about in Vietnam with MAC-VSOG. And the whole idea behind it was it got you to the ground quickly in a safe manner so that you can continue with your mission. However, they were infiltrating into the jungle where people can't, really see you. Just the technology at the time didn't make it a necessity to really care about enemy radar and enemy assets being able to track you. Now, if you're trying to infiltrate somewhere, bad guys see a C-17 or C-5 tracking along at a certain speed, and then all of a sudden they hook a hard 90-degree turn in a different direction, they're going to look at that track and be like, oh, something happened. Something changed right here. And that may be all they need. Now they dispatch a couple helicopters, and now your ODA's assed out because you're still trying to collect your parachute in the middle of stuff. So the idea behind Hey-Ho is you can have your carrier aircraft be it a C-17, a C-5, or a civilian bird like an MD-80 or something like that. You jump out, you pop your parachute within 1,000 feet of exit. Now you guys have that entire time to glide to wherever you want to go. And that bird doesn't have to change their track. So now when the bad guys are watching your C-5 or your C-17, like, oh, they're just flying to this base. They didn't do anything weird. Also, it lets you kind of assess. It gives you more decision-making time before you hit the ground. With Halo, I mean, you got what you got, man. You may be able to move laterally 800, maybe 800 meters. In Hey-Ho, as you're flying along in formation, now that you have your nods on, you probably have access to a binocular or a monocular. You can look down and see that drop zone that you thought was a super cool, dry drop zone, now it's flooded. And now you'd have a lot more time to look at it, look past it, and start looking at it out, looking for a way to go. So, I mean, it is terrain dependent. They did what they did in Vietnam because of the terrain they had to deal with and the technology at the time. Now we have more assets to kind of plan better. I believe in the course they were talking about how our old shoots, the MC4, like at a normal cruising speed, at a certain down angle, when it returns back on radar, it comes back as an F-15. So they're like, if we're going against this certain adversary, like, then you guys don't need to, always fly at full blast. Don't slow down until you start making turns, because at full blast, it just looks like bullshit. But if you're at half break or 3/4 break, for some reason, the angles come back as an American aircraft. I don't know why.
So weird.
Yeah, it is.
Very interesting.
Okay. So no, that's super interesting, man. I didn't know that. So now you're back home. You're going through your, Halo school, your MFF jump master, all this advanced training, jocking up for deployment number 4. Still on the same ODA. What situation are you looking at getting into this time?
Yeah. So, I was able to finagle myself to stay on my team this whole time. I'd made E7. I'd already dodged the Special Warfare Center list once, and I knew my time was coming. So I knew this was my probably be my last deployment on this team. So I made a promise to the boss, like, hey man, if you keep me on the team, I'll be here for this next deployment. So we go. For the training for this deployment was a lot less machine guns and rockets, and it was a lot more learning all of our languages. So we had a couple guys speaking, like I speak Farsi, so I got juiced up on that. We had a couple guys trying to learn Kurdish, so they went to school for that. We had a couple guys learning Iraqi dialect Arabic, and we did that. We did a lot of low vis courses or low visibility training. Like, I didn't wear a uniform for probably the 6 months leading up to that deployment, at least in training. We would go train with suits on. We would shoot in casual clothes. We did combatives in suits. Just all this stuff that was like, oh man, this is some fucking James Bond shit. And it was cool. But it was just, I'm an infantryman at heart, so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, oh man, where are the machine guns? Like, where's the bombs? But it was pretty neat, getting some of the training that we got, the briefings that we sat in, having access to the databases and the files that we had on people and places, and just the level of awareness of the intel operations that were going on in that part of the world was awesome.
So it sounds like doing combatives wearing suits, is this like something from a Jason Statham movie where you're pulling on the tie and it turns out it's a clip-on and you're like, oh shit?
No, I wish it was cool like that, but it was just a bunch of sweaty guys wrestling in suits.
Oh man.
We got Glock 26s. Glock 26 is a subcompact 9mm pistol. It only has, I don't see 8 or 10 rounds. So, I mean, I have tiny little rat claws, and it was too small even for my hands. So we had to become proficient with that weapon system, and that was some heartburn. Like, that thing was hard to shoot because it was so small. And then we just had to, train our newer, because by now people have people have rotated out. We have a couple new guys on the team, and these guys are fresh from the course. So they thought, I'm a Green Beret. I'm going to go live with Indige in the woods. I'm going to go do this and do that. And their very first mission is like, no, man, you're actually going to learn how to eat dinner like a human. And, oh, by the way, I know your language is French, but we're going to fucking cram Arabic in your brain. So that was what we spent most of the deployment doing, was trying to control the new guys. We also learned a lot of ways to, just talk to people. Like, that was the big thing, is how, like, I'm sitting here at this table and the person I want to talk to is sitting at that table. How do I, as a normal human being, find a way to go talk to this guy in a non, like, hey, I'm hitting on you way? Like, I have to come up with a way to talk to him. I have to go talk to him. And so you would learn different techniques on how to do that. I mean, they weren't always applicable, but it was just another thing that we learned. I remember one of our training exercises, one of our meetings was in a gay bar. And it was just like, obviously the people that were running it, the observer controllers that were running it, like, worked with the staff, kind of told them a little bit about what we were doing. So it was like, yeah, man. Like, as soon as we walked in, it was an experience.
Just to, like, put you in a different environment and just see how you would react, how you'll adapt.
Yes, because, I mean, fifth group is like the redneck group of the regiment. Like, you lose count the amount of hunter camo hats and the pure ocean of dipspit awash in the fifth group area would be amazing. So, like, you take this kid from Georgia who may have been in a Ranger regiment, may have been in Alaska, may have been in 173rd infantry dude, super tough, ultra masculine, and it's like, no, we have to go meet with this gay guy. He's in a gay bar. He's a very important intelligence asset. We have to go talk to him. And then you just, you watch this big muscly tattooed guy, like, oh man, fuck, I don't know if I can do it. Like, well, I mean, dude, this is the job, so we have to go do it. I mean, I sound very confident now, but yeah, I was very uncomfortable talking.
I can see the training value in a sense. I mean, probably like this episode's going to get picked up by Breitbart or something. They made special forces train in a gay bar, this woke military. I can't believe it. But I mean, I see the point. I mean, you're taking somebody outside of their comfort zone and throwing you into a new environment. And can you still find ways to relate with people who, frankly, have a different lifestyle than you?
Yeah, and it's funny because on this deployment, I mean, it wasn't that, and there are no gay bars in Iraq, as far as I know. Allegedly. No, on this deployment, we went to bars and other social areas to talk to people. And we're the only Americans, the only white people in this bar. So, like, we had to be able to operate in that zone. Right. So it was really interesting. It was an interesting time. And plus there's nothing worse than trying to write a contact report when you're still hungover from the fucking day before. It's an exercise.
So what happens? I take it, I'm going to assume this is a intelligence-driven deployment that you guys are walking into. And yes. It's interesting because a lot of people, they have the view of Green Berets that we often talk about on this show, which is working by, with, and through host nation counterparts to go lay some whoop ass on some bad actors out there in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever the case may be. But there's this whole other side of special forces, goes all the way back to like RSTs and so quote unquote long-haired teams back in like the 1980s. What can you tell us about this deployment, that after you guys went through this extensive train up and heading back over to Iraq?
This deployment was interesting in a number of ways. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where in an indirect way, it was more dangerous than anything I'd done before, because anything I'd done before, we had armor, we had radios, we had helicopters and airplanes that were just looking for an excuse to drop bombs on people and shoot things. In this scenario, it was me, my partner, and a cell phone. So, like, if things went bad, I mean, I have my tiny little Glock 26 with my 10 rounds in it and my one reload. And maybe we have a rifle in the trunk. Maybe. Because the thing is, also on this deployment, we lived on a house in town. We had neighbors who knew we were Americans, who knew we were American soldiers. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people, when they think of like intelligence operations or spies or whatever, they're like, oh, you must have this deep cover and nobody knows what you're doing. No, man, there's no way I can pretend that I am somebody different with my 6'4" blonde friend here who has fucking Norse tattoos from his neck to his wrist. I can't. He's not here as a fucking farming attaché, you know? So like we didn't have a cover. We didn't need one. We were SF guys in Kurdistan. That's what we were.
Right.
Nobody needed to know exactly what we were doing or who we were talking to, but I mean, we got the version of a Kurdish FBI ID from the Asayish, the Kurdish FBI. Cause I mean, we were honest with them. Like, hey, who are you guys? Why are there 13 Americans here with all these weapons and radios? We're American SF guys, and we're here to help coordination and cooperation between the KRG and the government of Iraq. All right, whatever, man. Sounds good to me. Here's your IDs. And, and I mean, you just had to realize that everybody that you talked to, every Kurd or every Iraqi that you talked to was reporting on you. Mm-hmm. I remember one guy, I ran into him and started trying to develop him, you know, as a source, and kind of submitted his stuff. And then it came back. It was like, hey, this guy, you need to fucking watch out for this guy. He's a counter intel agent. He's a known counter intel agent. So that told us a couple things, right? That told us that bad guys knew that we were there. They knew who we were. I mean, this dude knew who almost all of us were, what we all looked like, for the vehicles that we drove to his thing. And the next meeting, I couldn't just be like, you're a bad guy. I can't talk to you anymore. So it was like, you know, you have to play the game.
Right.
And that leads me into the gay bar analog that we went to. We went to this restaurant and we go in there and everything, you know, we're cool, man. We're cool. Everything's cool. I'm here with my partner. And we go in there, we're talking about some things and just like, you know, sitting there smoking hookah, enjoying our fish. And he kind of just looks over. This was in 2010 or 11 when tensions were very high between Iraq and America. And we're just kind of shooting the shit, talking, and he speaks fluent English. And he looks over and he gets very close and he goes, hey, man, seriously, between us, when are the Americans going to attack Iran? And I'm just sitting there smoking this hookah like, probably tonight, definitely tonight. And he's like, no shit. And he got all excited. I was like, dude, I don't fucking know. I'm just a soldier here having a hookah. Like, why the fuck would I know? So, of course, I excused myself, go to the bathroom and hit the emergency button. Like, we need to get the fuck out of here right now. Unconnected to anything, there's a giant explosion out front. Giant explosion out front. The windows crack. I pull my gun out and I kind of hide it underneath my coat. So I'm like, well, it's fucking on now. Like, this is it. Like, I'm kind of happy. I'm kind of excited. I'm really scared. I'm like, oh man, this is it. The movie begins. And I go out there. I see my buddy, Andy. I'm like, hey dude, let's go. So I've already sent the signal. Our teammates are coming in their armored Land Cruisers. They're jacked. I can tell just by the phone call. Like, this is 13 hours before the movie even came out. And like we're hustling down the stairs, and the guy that we're meeting with is like, no, where are you going? Come back, hang out. It's fine. Everything's good. We're all friends. And it's like, no, I gotta go. Bye, Muhammad. See you later. Bye. And what had happened was nothing cool. The fucking transformer blew up outside. Just a random, like all my team saw it because they were positioned down the street. And they thought it was like an RPG or something, you know, like something crazy. And it was just the transformer blew up the front of the restaurant. So I'm typing this report and I send it in. And I don't get a response back from the normal person. I get a response back. I get a response back from that person's boss's boss. And it was like, you have no idea how dangerous that was. That dude, you know, just like chewing me out about how dangerous and reckless we were and blah, 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 blah. You know, the normal, like, chief of police speech to the rowdy detective.
Give me your badge. Yeah.
You're out of control, Caleb.
You're a loose cannon. And then I get an email from the guy I normally send my reports to. And he's like, hey, just between you and me, that was pretty cool, man. Like, that was badass. I was getting sweaty reading your report.
But, like, what were they butthurt about? Like, you guys had some reason to believe maybe this thing was going sideways and you needed to get extracted very quickly.
Well, what we didn't know is that restaurant we had chosen to accompany this man to was right there is a red flag. Like when you always want to control the situation that you're in.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those things where it was like, we let our balls be bigger than our brains at that point. It was like, yeah, fuck it, we'll go to your restaurant. And then the fact that we knew he was a counter intel agent, the fact that we went to the restaurant that he wanted us to go to, and the fact that the whole reason that we were in contact with each other was going to disappear anyway. Like all of these things stacked up. They're like, why did you even put yourself in that situation?
Yeah, I get it.
You're like, because I was bored.
Yeah, because I have this gun that you gave me, and I'm allowed to go do whatever I want. No, looking back at it now, we could have planned it a little better. But I mean, nobody got hurt. We're fine. We lived. We survived. It was a great story. Maybe the journey was the destination in the end. Anyway, I don't know.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love.
You're just living your most authentic life.
We have a couple questions. Actually, a few.
Yeah. Any other interesting moments from that deployment there, Caleb?
So we were picked to talk to like the Kurdish Secretary of Defense, and he asked us. He's like, "What do you guys want?" Because we offered to train his commandos. And I was sitting next to a State Department liaison. And we were there in our uniforms, playing the soldier role. And I had my leg crossed over my other leg, like, just like you would normally sit in a chair. And we're waiting there. We waited there like 90 minutes in this fucking room because everybody was holding court around the Secretary of Defense. And I just kind of turned and looked at my team leader, like, I have to pee so bad. I'm going to die if I don't go pee. And he's like, just hold on. We'll leave here in a minute. If you have to go pee, just relax. So as I do this, the State Department guy leans over. He's like, hey, I don't know how much you know about the Arabic culture, but you're showing the bottom of your foot, and that is very disrespectful. And I just looked at him, and I was like, who am I showing my foot to? You? I don't care if I disrespect you. And he was just like, oh. And the general kind of saw that we were getting restless, and he's like, who are you guys again? And we're like, through the translator. We're like, oh, sir, we're the special forces team that offered to train your commandos. And he kicked everybody out of the room, even the State Department guys. And he's like, I've been talking, essentially he's like, I've been talking to these fucking assholes all day. I'd like to talk to some soldiers. And we hung out in that room for like 45 minutes, just bullshitting about soldier stuff. And he told us about fighting Saddam back in the 80s, and he told us about fighting after before he fought Saddam, he fought the Iranians for Saddam. It was super cool. And at the very end, he's like, well, what are you guys here for again? The commandos, right? I'm like, yes, sir, the commandos. And I went to go hand him like a list of things that we wanted, vehicles and weapons and ammo. And he just looked at it, and he handed it to like some other fucking general. He's like, hey, anything they want, give it to them. And that's how we got like 4 million rounds of PKM ammo and 10 million rounds of AK and a bunch of trucks and ammo and fuel. And it was awesome because we sat down and we built that relationship with them. We didn't kowtow and we didn't, prostrate ourselves before him. It was just like, hey, I'm a man, you're a man. Let's talk soldier stuff. So that made me feel good. That was a good point of the trip.
And so how do you think it went overall as far as, your intelligence gathering mission and all this sort of Jason Bourne hijinks that you guys were up to, as well as working, trying to get things for the commandos? I mean, do you think it was overall successful?
I think it was. When you look at everything in moderate, like when you have realistic aspirations, right? So if we went over there and it's like, oh man, we're going to create this super awesome spy network that's going to allow us to spy on everybody. Like, no, you're not.
It takes a long time.
It takes a long time, and it takes authorities, and it takes permissions, and it takes money. And that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people, I mean, it's the same I assume it's the same in almost every field of endeavor. once you realize that you don't know everything and that more minds come up with better solutions, like we kind of went at it the way, SF guys do. And we work with the peons of the world. We work with the truck drivers and the janitor.
Right.
Yeah. And other people work with presidents and CEOs and, area and regional managers. So when you have the guys who are used to talking to the truck driver, talking to the guys who are used to talking to the CEO, there's some things lost in translation. But as soon as both sides kind of loosen up and realize what the other one does, it got a lot easier.
Yeah.
Like other people would toss us sources like, hey man, I can't do shit with this guy. He doesn't have the ability to do what I want him to do. So here, you take him, thinking that they're giving me a piece of trash. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, that's perfect. That's exactly what I need to talk to this guy for.
Right.
And it just, I think when the lower level and the mid-level guys work together outside of the upper echelons, a lot of things get done.
Was there any I don't know, did you encounter that State Department guy again? Was there any lingering effect from him feeling slighted or anything like that?
You'd run into him. You'd run into him time to time. Maybe not him specifically, but you would run into the State Department people who, the true believers, the ones that man, we are here to, it is the white man's burden. We are here to fucking make everybody democracy. And it's that's super cool, bro. If somebody comes in that door, I will defend you. But whatever this other stuff that you're selling, that's not my mission. I am just here to, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, and also 2010, 2011, we're fucking leaving, bro. What are you talking about?
That's true. That's true. That's true. That was the biggest thing that we were having a hard time with the Kurds, especially. It was I can't remember how many conversations we had where they're like, we love you guys.
Yeah.
We love America. We love American soldiers. You guys are the fucking shit. If you could, I would let you marry my daughter. Are you guys going to stay here much longer? And, you'd feel terrible. You're like,
yeah.
You need to do this. You need to do that. Here's how you zero your PAC-4 laser. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And, in moments of clarity or moments of man-to-man talking, are you guys going to stay here? Real talk? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I know I'm going home in fucking April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Kurds should be used to that by now, honestly. I mean,
yeah.
I remember hearing that after the first Gulf War. I think the first Gulf War, that the most common name or one of the most common new names for babies was George Bush, as a first name. And, and America's like,
oh yeah, it's a shame. It happened again this last time, man. You talk to other fifth group guys, you talk to MARSOC dudes who work with the Kurds, you talk to any soft guys or even any conventional guys that were over there. And it's it does. It is a shitty feeling.
Yeah. Caleb, we're going to take some user questions or viewer questions in a moment. I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel if they haven't already. For some damn reason, only half of our viewers are actually subscribed to the channel. That's wrong. You know what you're doing out there. You need to be hitting the subscribe button and hit the little bell icon and select all notifications so you get notified every time we go live with dudes like Caleb, right?
Yeah, hook some brothers up.
I mean, come on, you're freeloading. You're just watching these episodes and not subscribed. How does that even work? I don't get it.
And for those of you who don't know, you don't have to pay to subscribe.
No, you don't.
It's free.
Absolutely.
100% free.
And leave us some comments. Let us know how we're doing. Give the video a little thumbs up or a thumbs down if you think we suck. There's also a link down in the description to our Patreon page where you get access to our bonus segments. If you want to support the show financially, keep everything running. We really appreciate you guys. There is also our merch. We got t-shirts and coffee mugs, and there's a link to that down in the description. And our Instagram account
at the.team.house.
Definitely check that out.
Lots of great pictures and stuff and notifications on there.
And with that, Caleb,
do you want to get the viewer questions real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do a couple of these. Alejandro, thank you. Working with Naval Special Warfare, the SEALs, out west, did you ever get to witness them balance a ball on their nose or any other tricks? Thanks for coming back, dude.
That's low-hanging fruit, Alejandro. You can get a sicker burn than that if you really tried. Come on, man.
And also not once. I didn't watch one act of balancing or croaking or clapping or anything.
Did you do any joint ops with the SEALs, Caleb?
Yes. We got to do a couple raids with them. We went on possibly the worst truck drive I've ever been on in my entire life with them. We drove from their base seemingly to Turkey and back. We went down into this giant wadi. I'm in a turret. I'm like in the third or fourth vehicle in the convoy. And I'm kind of just looking around. And I kind of look, and all I can see under nods are the taillights. And we're just driving through the middle of the desert. I'm like, whatever, man. We can go do this thing. And I kind of look, and I just see the taillights in the front of the convoy start to disappear. And it's like the first set disappear, the second set disappear. And I know that our first vehicle is the third vehicle in the convoy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hear what's going on. And all of a sudden I hear like, holy fucking shit. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Time. I just pull the round, the safe round out of the 50 cal. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's fucking game on. Like, I'm so excited. And it was this giant wadi that they knew about, but they didn't tell us about. And this thing was fucking giant. Like, I don't know, maybe 5 meters deep. And it had they'd used it before, so it had a ramp. But unless you knew it was there, you didn't know it was there. And it was kind of one of those things, like as soon as we got out of the ramp, everybody's cussing and mad because, we had our stuff set up, but we didn't know we were getting ready to take a 5 meter dump. So there's rounds everywhere and water bottles and shit. So we went and hit this town, and, they use different tactics than us. They use different radio procedure. So I'm expecting we're going to do a halt. We're going to set up support positions. We're going to do how we do it. Fuck no, man. We just roll into that town. Yep. And it's like, yeah, Roger, copy, target 30 seconds. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, all right, we're doing it. It's like assault. Like I get kind of excited because I was like, we're fucking assaulting. They're saying it over the radio. Let's do it. And these guys just casually jump off the truck and walk up to the door and slam it with a sledge, and they go in. It's like, yeah, it's empty again. Yeah. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, oh, yeah, we hit this target about once a month. He's never here. And I was like, you motherfuckers.
RTB.
Yeah, there's no security support by fire assault. They're like, hey, diddle, right up the middle. Let's see what happens when we draw fire.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, it was cool. Hey, I got to say I got to do a raid with Navy SEALs, but it was fuck, man. We led the way back. So it was just...
Yeah. Guru Go, thank you very much. What's the funniest thing that happened, Oconus, outside the continental United States?
Oh, the funniest?
The funniest.
Oh, fuck, man. There's so many funny ones. I'm trying to think of one that wasn't like a you had to be there kind of thing. There was one where one of my teammates was taking a shit through a 50 cal box, and the box broke. That was hilarious. Then there was the night we got rained on. We were out in the desert, and the whole time we'd be talking about, hey, make sure you bring a poncho because it might rain. Bring your poncho, it might rain. So, being the good little soldier I was, I had a poncho. And one of our teammates was like, fuck that, it's the desert. It never rains in the fucking desert. And we're in this patrol base, and all the turrets have ponchos over them, except for my one buddy who didn't bring his poncho. And he's just sitting in the turret so miserable. It's cold and it's rainy. And every couple minutes you hear the radio crackle, like, hey, bro, you good? Or what's going on here? And you're like, fuck off. And it's just all night long. I remember walking through a blown up bunker where the whole team was asleep. So tired because we've been patrolling all day, and I just got off my guard shift. And all I could think of was my buddy, the current sergeant major in 5th group. His rack was right next to mine, or his sleeping bag was right next to mine. And he was the one that was fire guard before me. So he wakes me up. He's like, hey, man, it's your fire guard shift. By the way, don't you fucking step on me. And I was like, yeah, dude, cool, whatever, man. I'm half asleep, stumbling up to the machine gun. And as I'm coming back, it strikes me as I'm like standing on top of him, and I can hear him yelling at me. Like the only thing he wanted to do was me not to step on him, but I fucking stepped on him. Sorry, man. I'm drunk right now. I can't control myself. I don't know. There's just so many funny things that imagine going to war with 10 of your best friends. It's going to be funny as fuck.
Jackson, thank you. And I don't know if you accidentally sent this again or if you didn't hear the first.
That was the spicy Sif question.
Yeah. So this question was answered at the beginning of the show. Well, we're done. Go back and watch the beginning if you didn't hear it. But thank you. We do appreciate your generosity. Brad, thank you very much. Do you think the CIA's paramilitary unit is as effective as Army SF?
I mean, I've never really interacted with them. I wish I had like a cool story. Like, yeah, me and this dude were fucking bare knuckle brawling, but no, I don't know. I think it's a different tool for different use. Right. So like from what I know, most of those guys are from all over the military. So you have a range of experiences. A lot of them are tier 1 guys. The few that I've interacted with were older dudes, like retired dudes, former sergeants major, majors and above. And it's just it's a different animal. I hate it when people on podcasts kind of like give like a roundabout answer. They don't answer it really, but that's what it is. It's an SF ODA is like a Tacoma, right? Like it'll fucking work, man. But like, it's not the best thing out there. Ground branch they're a Lamborghini. They do what they do. And it's, if you can afford it, then you should use it. But if you just need somebody to move your couch, then a fucking ODA will do it.
Is it kind of like asking if the fire department is as effective as the police?
Similar. They do different things. They do similar things, as in work out and look cool as fuck, but they do different jobs. And I mean, you also got to think about it. Like an SF guy, even if he's like a super good infantryman, I don't know, he's 24, 25.
Right.
First marriage.
Right. First marriage. Yeah. Yeah.
The ground branch guy, he's like 45, 46, third marriage.
Second, third.
Yeah. He already has the gold ring and the Harley back in the garage at home. Yeah.
He doesn't care if he's gone 180 days every year.
Right. Down. Hold on. Oh. Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry, guys. Almost the same question. Oh, no, very different question, actually. From Walker. Thank you, Walker. I'm sure you all have worked with PMOOs before, paramilitary operations officers, before, but did you or does Special Forces ever work with regular ops officers?
We did, in the essence of, we would do coordination meetings to make sure, because in certain areas, there's only so many places to meet, right? So we would do a little sync meeting of like, hey, where are you guys going to go today? Like, oh, I'm going to go to the fucking McDonald's on 10 Meter Road. Oh, okay. I was going to do that on Sunday, but if you're using it Sunday, then I'll just go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. That was where I was also kind of exposed to the security element of that place, you know, from 13 Hours fame. Once you know what you're looking for, once you've kind of seen them in their environment, you can kind of see how they operate. Like I have buddies who work around that organization now, and it's just, when people talk about like spies, like CIA agents, it's different, man. Like they're a different breed. They're a different animal than what everybody thinks. There's very few Daniel Craigs.
Yeah.
As American spies. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, everybody, the whole hullabaloo about the diversity commercial they just put out like last month or whatever. I mean, that shit's real, dude. Like, they would much rather you have a master's degree in astronomy than have your Tower of Power and 2 CIBs.
Yeah.
Because in reality, like, yeah, this guy could be a retired sergeant major from CAG. Like, super cool guy, super really good at doing bad things to bad dudes. But, I mean, when he's gone, I have 10 more lined up.
Right.
They really want the person who can think abstractly. And
right. So Tower of Power is the Ranger and Special Forces tabs, and then the 2 CIBs are combat infantry badges. Just for the people who are following us and aren't aware. Let's see here. Sam C, thank you. Are most Rangers that go to SF RFS Rangers? RFS is released for standards. You get kicked out of Ranger Battalion down the road.
we have 2 Rangers right here that could probably answer those questions.
I honestly don't know what the percentage is. I think there's a lot of active duty guys in Ranger Regiment who go to SFAS, especially now that the dynamics of the war are changing. Like Ranger Battalion is like I guess they're fixing to go back to like deployments to Korea and stuff. Like my understanding is that Ranger Regiment just ripped out of Afghanistan for the last time. Like they're done.
Wow.
Yeah, like that just happened. Yeah, for real. And regiment's been continuously deployed to Afghanistan, continuously deployed in the war on terror since the very beginning, since day one. So that's over, man. So I think the last decade, you've seen a lot more actual guys in regiment go to SFAS, and I think you're going to see that increase even more.
I think it's also important to mention for people who aren't familiar with like Ranger Regiment that being released for standards,
You're booted out, yeah.
Yeah, when you get kicked out, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a bad Ranger. Just like in any other organization, there are politics that are from the top down, sometimes big armies, sometimes higher, and sometimes just whatever. But guys can get kicked out of regiment for...
Oh yeah. I knew guys who were good Rangers who got RFS.
Yeah,
and I hope they're out there kicking ass, doing good things in life.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Has anyone actually ran into a Kurd named George Bush in the wild?
I haven't. Sorry.
'Cause I heard that they changed all their names after parents changed their names after we bailed.
No, I mean, obviously I met a lot of Mohammeds. That was pretty much the big thing. No George Bushes. We found a couple of Andys.
Oh, really?
Mikes.
Interesting.
I knew a guy, no shit, his full name, Muhammad. A lot of Mohammeds.
That is a lot of Mohammeds. Is there really such a thing as excess Mohammeds?
No, there isn't.
We never had too many Mohammeds.
But I mean, maybe they could have thrown a Mike in there as a middle name.
Or a Mahmoud.
I'm just saying.
Muhammad.
Muhammad, Mahmoud, Ahmed. Yes, but no.
Thank you, Jackson. How bad does Fort Campbell, Clarksville suck?
I mean, it's like any military. So here's what I noticed working with the Marines is that the Marines had the bases on lock. I mean, you have a 50-50 chance if you're an infantryman going to Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton. Camp Pendleton is awesome. If you want to compare Fort Campbell to anywhere on the coast, it's obviously not going to be as good. But the good part about Fort Campbell is that Nashville is an hour south. As far as training and all that other stuff, I think Fort Campbell's a great training area. It's kind of crazy that the SF compound is in the middle of post.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I thought the 3 places I was stationed in the Army was Benning, Bragg, and Campbell, and I thought Campbell was the best of the 3. Clarksville was the best, life off post of the 3, which I'm setting the bar pretty low here, but nonetheless.
Yeah, Fort Benning and Fort Bragg. I've always hated Fort Bragg. I'm from North Carolina, and I hated Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Fort the good thing about Fort Campbell is that if you gave even an ounce of effort, you could find somewhere to go and do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alejandro I don't know why this. Alejandro, thank you. Okay, Jack, fine. Kept working with Naval Social Warfare. Is it true how poorly adept they are at mission planning or writing a basic 5-paragraph op order? Do they write 5-paragraph op orders?
So in reference to that, we didn't really use 5-paragraph op orders. We used ConOps, or concept of the operation. It's usually a 1 to 3 slide on PowerPoint presentation. I mean, I wouldn't normally just join full in on SEAL bashing, but one of my best buddies is a SEAL, and he kind of really showed me how professional they can be. The thing that kind of struck me is they just have different roles and responsibilities. So on an ODA, if it's my mission, if I'm running the mission, like, hey, Caleb, you're in charge of patrol today, where are we going to go? I would talk to somebody else, maybe a Bravo, to be like, hey, man, could you plan the route for me? And the Bravo is going to go plan the route. And then obviously I'll double check, being the patrol leader, check and recheck. But like, that's kind of his thing. Knowing full well, I could be the guy making the route the next patrol, right? So we all share responsibility. We all share the burden. Doing the couple operations that I did with NSW, it was like, oh, we'll take that to Steve. He's the routes guy. And like, that's his mission. That is his job. He is the fucking routes guy. And that's cool, man. Like, Steve may be really good at routes, but like, what if Steve has to fucking be gone? Like, so it's just a different mentality. Like,
yeah.
In our little cubbies, our little wall cubbies, I had to take all my shit out, and the next guy came in and put his stuff there. And he's like, oh, well, what do you do on the team? It's like, oh, I'm the 18 Charlie. I'm demolitions and blah, blah, blah. I was like, what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm a machine gunner. And I was like, so what's so special? Like, you're just a machine gunner that swims? What the fuck do you do? And he's like, I'm a machine gunner. And he's like, all right, cool, man. Roger that. Fucking carry on. It's just different responsibilities. Like, I know that when the operations order comes out, I grab it, I immediately pull my part out of it, and then I start looking through my responsibilities. It's just different organizations when it comes to that stuff. So obviously I'm going to care a lot more about supply and things like that than just a guy who's assigned to it.
And what were the steps? What happened? How did you become so close to the SEAL?
How did that happen? What the fuck happened here?
No, so we were after the Army. I became a contractor, and we were part of the training cell, or the T cell, for 1st Marine Raider Battalion. And it was 2 SF guys, Force Recon guy, obviously some Marine Raiders, and we had 2 SEALs, and then one of them quit when we changed contracts. So then we just had the lone SEAL. And may I still go to SF guy heaven for saying this about a Navy SEAL? He was a fucking professional soldier, man. Like, he knew the principles of patrolling. His dad was a Green Beret in Vietnam. He, like, talking to his dad about, he wanted to join the military, and he asked his dad, he's like, should I be a Green Beret? And his dad looked at him right in the eye. He's like, fuck no, you better go be a Navy SEAL. Their life is a lot better. So he went and became a SEAL. We'd spend hours together in this truck watching the fucking range. And I'd be like, hey, man, is it serious? Is it for real that you guys, do this, or you suck at this? And he'd be like, yes, we do suck at that. And here's why. And he would explain why because they're not infantrymen, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So to him, he doesn't really give a fuck about classes of supply.
Right.
They're always going to have it.
Right. And I'll just say, for my small part, like, I did do some joint ops with the SEALs in Iraq, and they were really good guys, and they did a good job. I have nothing bad to say about those dudes, as much as I joke about them. But no, those guys were good to go.
Oh, they're just a fun bunch, man. I mean, one team, one fight.
I know, but no, we all know that. But there are people out there watching, like, it's seriously butthurt, like mega butthurt. They'll show up in the comments section, and it's just like the poutiness and the weeping, and it's just horrible. It's horrible. Can't deal with it. I'm getting old.
Thank you, Andrew. Major. Alejandro, thank you. Peeps in comment section don't remember if it was asked last time. Kev, how much would you guess a giraffe goes for on the black market?
Like fully grown or a baby giraffe?
No, an adult giraffe.
Adult.
An adult giraffe?
Mm-hmm.
Alive?
Yes.
Yep.
Very much so.
$7,000 USD.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark.
I think that's, yeah. It was, yeah. I'm trying to remember what it was.
So Caleb, tell us a little bit about, what made you leave 5th Legion, the glorious 5th Special Forces Group at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Why did you depart from the Army eventually, and where are you at today?
Well, for those of you that don't know, like in the Army, when it comes time to re-enlist, you hit your final point, you hit your final enlistment or re-enlistment, and mine was coming up. And my wife sat me down and she was like, hey, I'm not a big fan of this Army wife lifestyle when you're gone 8 months out of the year. And I'm not saying I'm going to leave you, but it's not going to be like super great and fun for me and your kids. So I was like, all right, noted. We're going to stay in. Because, every good team sergeant has one marriage under his belt. But then we sat down and we actually wrote it out. We're like, hey, so at the time I had 8 years left. And she's like, well, what do you like the most about your job? I was like, well, I like being with the boys. I like shooting machine guns. I like jumping out of airplanes. She's like, all right, cool. How many more years? I was doing a staff job at the time. She's like, how many more years do you think you have left to do that? What happens next year? And I was like, I finished my staff time and then I could go back to a team. And she's like, or I could go to SWIC, Special Warfare Center, for 3 to 4 years. And she's like, all right, so now out of your 8 years, you spent 3 years at Fort Bragg doing something you don't want to do. So that leaves you 5 years left. How many years you get? So we just did the math, and it kind of came up to like I had maybe roughly 36 months left on a team.
Mm-hmm. If you're lucky.
If I'm lucky. Mm-hmm. And, 36 months left on a team, maybe 12 of that would be as a team sergeant. Maybe I could squeeze 24 months as a team sergeant. So out of 8 years, I really only had 2 to 4 years left of being an actual SF guy. No offense to those sitting in offices in Fort Bragg. So she was like,
they want to be on a team too, Caleb.
Yeah, they do. So she's like, all right, well, are you willing to possibly fuck up your family life for 48 months of maybe team time?
Right.
And I was like, oh man, I got to make the adult decision here. So I got a job as a contractor, working in the training cell for 1st Marine Raider Battalion. And then I signed up to transfer to 19th Special Forces Group and left the Army in January 2015. It was tough. It really was tough. Because I joined at 17. So like that's my only job I've ever had. And then I was in 19th Group for a year and a half, 2 years. And I realized that probably wasn't for me. I showed up in March and we got the deployment order to go to Afghanistan in June. So I'd only been officially out of the Army for like 3 weeks. And I was like, hey, we're going to Afghanistan. We have the commandos. It's going to be fucking sweet. And my wife was like, hey, I'm pregnant with your 3rd child. And she's going to be coming out soon. So no. So that I just realized, like, if you want a stable family life, at least in my situation, I had to get out of the Army.
Yeah. It's really interesting too how like with the guard groups, like people either love it or hate it. Like everyone I've talked to, they either have a love affair with the SF National Guard or they just vehemently hate it and get out of there as quickly as possible.
Well, I tell this to everybody. I tell this to every single person who asks me questions about becoming a Green Beret. If I could go back in time, I would tell young me to go join the National Guard SF because it's fucking awesome. If you're a single guy, you could go to any school you want. You could go on as many deployments as you want, and you are gone. And if you're a good SF guy, all these really cool opportunities just show up. It's like, hey man, we need somebody to go liaison with the fucking Mexican SF regiment. Nobody else can go. Do you want to go? Fuck yeah, I want to go. Mm-hmm. And because you're there, you get to go do it. Now, if you're And, I'm speaking directly to active SF guys who are getting out. You think you're going to carry on in National Guard SF? It is not the same thing. It absolutely isn't. As bad as it was on an active duty team where you're trying to make plans with the family, it is 10 times worse because things fall through. Things fall through in active duty, and we're still probably going to Iraq this year. Like, we don't know when, but we're still probably going to Iraq this year. Things fall through in National Guard. It's like, oh, by the way, you're going to Afghanistan next week. Mm-hmm. Sell your house and quit your job. Mm-hmm. Oh, that just got canceled. Yeah, I can see why guys love it and hate it.
And like you said, for maybe a young single guy or whatever, it's the life because you get to go do all the cool stuff, and then you come back and you get to go do your own thing. You don't have to play all the army, garrison games. I'm a soldier now and spit shine in my boots and looking good in front of the command. You just go do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
Back in the day, those guys were like doing contracts with Blackwater and stuff like that in between deployments with the Guard, and they were making tons of money, doing real well.
Well, my exposure to the other SF guys in the Guard kind of led me in my metamorphosis from being a contractor. So the contractor game, when you're not a Blackwater guy or you're not a triple canopy, you're not Oconus doing security work. Our gig was training, and like any other business, they always try to operate, with the largest margins. So whenever I got out, I was making good money. I was making very good money. Mm-hmm. And then the contract came up for renewal the next year, and it was like, hey, I'm here. My name's so-and-so, and I'm going to offer you this job for $15K less. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, I mean, do I have a choice? And it's like, no, you don't, because for every one of you guys wearing a shirt, there's 3 other dudes here who are willing to take your job.
Right.
So it's like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll take the job. And then that happened again, and the next year I lost another $10,000. And the thing about it is, what we don't realize, especially guys who get out mid-career, is that dude who did 20, he can live off of $40,000 paycheck or $30,000 paycheck because he has his retirement and all his other things. If you're a 30-something-year-old man with a family, you're not going to live off that.
Right.
So I did that job for 4 years. Mm-hmm. Worked for Raider Battalion for 3 of them. My last year, I worked for training conventional dudes. Those were all great jobs. I mean, I loved going to work because we would sit there and be like, hey, what do we want to do next month? And we would just kind of look at the board and be like, well, we have a lot of Mark 19 that we haven't shot this year. And then we'd go do an instructor train up where we'd shoot 10,000 rounds of Mark 19. Because we have to be proficient at it to train the guys, right? So,
right.
That was what we would do.
Sounds legit to me.
Yeah. And it was cool to be able to interact with other branches. So like, dealing with NSW, dealing with Force Recon and MARSOC, you get to see the differences and get to see the like all these fucking YouTube videos, like who's better, who would win in a fight, a Navy SEAL or a Green, like all this shit. Like I got to see it in real life. I got to see, the differences in the organizations, and it was super cool. I really enjoyed it.
Well, actually, I'd love to hear that as a kind of some final thoughts maybe here for this one. Like, what are some of those differences between the different special operations units in, the contemporary, current day, modern day? What were some of those big differences that you pulled apart, but whether it's like doctrinally or culturally or whatever it is between MARSOC and the SEALs and the Rangers and SF?
Well, as far as Rangers, I can't speak to that at all because the only interactions I ever had with them were as teammates or as coworkers. Almost all the ones exclusively that I met were very fit, very aggressive, and very intelligent. They were good soldiers. I mean, that's the product of the Ranger Regiment is good soldiers. Like, and when a guy would come to the team and you could look on his arm and see that he had a fucking combat scroll, you're like, all right, I'm going to give this dude the benefit of the doubt because he's fucking pretty squared away. Did that come up false sometimes? Yeah. But hey, everybody's got shit bags. Mm-hmm. As far as like MARSOC, Vice, NSW, Vice, USASOC, when I showed up to Raider Battalion, I thought I had a scam of a job because we don't have a training cell in group. All the teams do their own work. So I showed up and I was like, I mean, what, you want me to like drive ammo to the range or fucking reserve the whatever? And they're like, no, you're teaching all the classes. You're setting up the scenarios. And I was like, well, don't they have guys on the team to do that? And that's not how they're set up. MARSOC, their operational element is an MSOC, or a Marine Special Operations Company. So 4 MSOTs, Marine Special Operations teams, are commanded by a major and a master gunnery sergeant, or master sergeant, sorry. And they are aligned for special reconnaissance and direct action. They can do all the other ones, but their primary goal is to be a giant fucking hammer from the sea. So along those lines, they're aligned like a SEAL troop. The positives of MARSOC, of a MARSOC operator, are they're extremely fit and their basic soldiering skills are pretty much on point when it comes to fire and maneuver and all that stuff, because they get it slammed into them.
Yeah.
In their training. The issues come in, any issues that they have come from their command. Because at the end of the day, they're still Marines.
Yeah.
And there is nothing more dangerous to an infantry Marine or a special operations Marine than some fucking Marine major. Because they will have them do the stupidest shit. But as far as the guys go, they like how we have jobs in SF. Because if you're a squared away MARSOC guy, you could be the sniper, you could be the medic, you could be the free fall jump master guy, you could end up being the weapons guy, you could end up being the commo guy. They'll send you to commo school. And now you're doing all these jobs mediocre to poorly. Mm-hmm. Whereas on an ODA, here's a guy who went to school for 6 months to become the radio guy. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference when it comes into there. Excuse me. MARSOC is kind of the in-between of NSW and an ODA. NSW, they have medics and they have corpsmen, they have radio guys, they have demo guys, they have ordnance guys. But when it comes down to do stuff like program radios, they have a support guy right there to program everybody's radio. It seems like a small thing, but on an ODA, as an SF guy, I'm supposed to. It's my radio. I need to program it. If I don't know how to program it, it's up to me to go to the radio guy, the 18 Echo, to program it for me or to show me how to do it. If the Humvee breaks, like in an ODA, you probably ain't gonna have no mechanic there to fix your shit. Somebody has to figure out how to fix it. In a NSW platoon or NSW troop, you're gonna have a mechanic. You're probably gonna have 2. When I went and visited SEAL Team 1's or 5's little living area, their gear lockers, their individual gear lockers were like the size of my office here for one guy. They had washers and dryers for every couple SEALs to wash and dry their clothes because they're always in the water, and they wash and dry their camis and just leave them there, and they're all folded and neat and shit. In an SF team, you would never find a washer and dryer in an SF compound because that shit would be broken in a hot minute. Most Navy SEALs, when you talk to them, you get like very honest with them. They admit it. They're commandos, man. They show up on a helicopter or a boat or out of a parachute. They go kill or destroy whatever they're going to do, and they come back on to the next mission. SF guys, we're used to living there, and that's our AO. We control it. We know everything about it. I mean, if you have any specific questions you want me to get into, I can.
No, I was just curious in the snapshot of the YouTube video, like fucking Marine versus Navy SEALs, who's going to win in a knife fight, you know, or is a Spetsnaz guy going to bust out the ballistic knife and shoot them both in the neck?
What the fuck was that?
Like, I don't know. I'm just curious, and I appreciate your insights on this topic here, Caleb. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you having worked with both of them, I mean, you do have a pretty unique experience.
Yeah.
No, and I was thankful for it. I really was, because I went there with my own biases and my own, the way I colored things. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like talk to the SEAL, or I'd talk to my buddy when I first met him. Like, what the fuck does he know? I'm fucking Navy SEAL. And, we got to a discussion about small unit tactics and battle drills and stuff. And he showed me some things that they do. And it was like, oh my God, why? That's so much simpler and easier than the way we do it. Why do we do it the way we do it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, well, we do it because we have an infantry background and we this, and that. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Let me take off my expert hat and be like, oh, well, that's simpler and it works every time. Why don't I just do that?
Right.
So it's, I don't know. Then there's the high gun thing, the low gun thing, like all this shit.
The high ready and the low ready, yeah.
Yeah, all the rumors that we knew as Army guys, I got to dispel. It was pretty good.
Maybe. Hey, can I steal you for the bonus segment for that? For
sure.
Rumor dispelling. All right, man.
We have one more question. Brad, 19th. Did 19th group get to go to probably Sephardic shooting school?
Yes. As a matter of fact, as a SF guy in 19th or 20th group, you're probably more likely to get Sephardic if you want, because the way schools work, at least in my experience, it was a text, and it said, hey, do you want to go to JTAC school or Joint Terminal Air Controller school? Do you want to go learn to drop bombs from airplanes in July? You're the only guy available.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And then you're on it.
Well, Caleb, any final thoughts wrapping things up here? What's going on today? You got anything you want to plug? I mean, do you have any dick pills to sell? I mean, what do you got for us?
No dick pills. I mean, I could just rattle off like a bunch of conspiracy theory things, but I won't do that to you. Epstein didn't kill himself. How about
that? He did or he didn't? What's the truth?
He didn't.
He did not?
Yeah.
Ghislaine is not going to kill herself. Should we throw that?
She's not going to kill herself either. Adrenochrome. Google it.
All right, guys. We will see you next episode. We're going to have Mark Polymeropoulos. Almost what he served almost 30 years in the CIA, I think. He's going to be on the episode again for round 2 next time. As you notice, we're kind of having some guests back for a second time for unfinished business. Caleb,
because they're just so good the first time.
We had a lot more to talk about with Caleb. We got Mark coming on. Then we got Danny Colson, and so things are rolling along here.
Yes, the much promised Danny Colson.
I know people keep asking me about it every day
with about Ruby Ridge and Waco, and also you mentioned Zero Dark 30 and the security guys. We have Tonto coming on July 2nd.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. And of course, somebody jumps in at the very last moment. This is it. And then we're moving on. Are Navy SEALs redundant with existence of MARSOC and SF SIFs? Well, the SIFs are disbanded, so that's not even an issue anymore.
I would say no, because much like a lot of the stuff we do in the military, specifically special operations, there's a lot of lip service paid to some capabilities. MARSOC is finding, they have found, and I mean, anybody who's honest is going to tell you, like, when you advertise that you can do everything, that's a terrible lie.
Yeah.
I mean, the title's in the name, Navy SEALs. If it comes to the ocean, those guys are probably going to be your go-to dudes for it.
All right, guys. So we will see you next Friday with Mark Polymeropoulos. Thank you so much, Caleb. This has been awesome. And we'll do the bonus segment for our Patreon subscribers in just a moment. Indeed.